Have you done any microphone work before?
Nah, man.
All right, so
my boss tries to do a podcast, and he tried to talk me through it, but
so yeah, you were mentioning your boss. He's into this type of stuff, because you were talking about him. You told him about my podcast.
Okay, so he's 26 years old, and he owns his own insurance company.
Wow.
And he's very savvy kind of guy, and he's putting a lot of effort into the social media stuff.
Honestly, so we're doing this Jiu-Jitsu Unraveled episode. I'll introduce you here in a moment. But for Jason, when he was on last week, I shared that to the gym page, because then it becomes this it's like content for itself, but it's also content for the gym. So it becomes, it's like, I see you're doing the same thing essentially with your business right now, which is insurance. So which I guess your boss is doing it just my podcast is a standalone, doesn't promote my business. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting, but because it's going to be its own business eventually.
Well, so I think that that's kind of the whole thing. Your own imprint is its own business.
That's and we've had several conversations about this creating, and we'll follow up on that. So let's real quick. So introduce you to the audience. Recently promoted black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Very recently.
Josh Bishop. Thanks for taking the time. You came down, hit up. Look, Nate's calling me. I'll have to text. I wonder if I bet he's in town. Wouldn't that be cool if he's in town and stop by? I'll text him here in a second. His mom lives here in town. She's a counselor. So
small world here in Arkansas. Yeah,
it really is, man. And you got here in 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
You live in
and that's what I love about being here in Arkansas.
Okay, so you're from Virginia.
I am.
Which there's 7 presidents from Virginia. 7 presidents.
At least.
Right? I forget who the other 2 are. Well, 5.
And there'll be more in the future.
4 of the first 5.
Maybe me.
You're an honorary Arkansan now. You know what's funny is I teach Arkansas history, and there's some politician that moved here from Louisiana and then became governor, and I was like, outsider. Yeah, you know.
Well, isn't in the proper term for that carpetbagger?
Yeah, yes, that's exactly it. That's more of I guess a post Civil War term, but it definitely applies because think Andrew Jackson was that in Tennessee. He came over to Tennessee to become a founding father of Tennessee. Tennessee needed founding fathers because we were expanding westward.
Yep.
This is why your boss should listen to my podcast, is because I'm always interjecting stupid historical facts.
He is a big history buff.
Maybe
shout out to Preston.
Maybe you and Preston will have to come do a Life Unraveled episode.
Oh, he would, and man, I bet he would love it.
Dude, but this is the best part about doing this, is talking to super interesting people. Catherine over here is way more interesting than you.
Shout out to Catherine.
Shout out to Catherine. She's not on camera. She might be. I don't know. But you came down here from Bentonville. You're from Virginia. How long you lived here?
Almost, I guess, about a year and a half.
Yeah, which we would have met right after you moved here. That was when I hurt your wrist.
September was when we met, and I'd moved here in April.
Yeah, the year of my birth, the month of my birth rather, as we recently established. So what do you think? Because Virginia, the Army of Northern Virginia, Robert E. Lee. We're basically akin to each other because we're both in the South.
And that's what's interesting is when I tell people here that I'm from Virginia, they automatically assume Yankee,
which is weird. That's very strange.
Because in a relative sense, it is far enough north that people associate, because it's the Mason-Dixon line, right?
It is, yes.
And so that in Virginia, it has that unique feel, because it's yes, we are Southern. In fact,
arguably the most Southern.
My grandmother very persistently would profess to me that I was eligible for Sons of the Confederate Veterans.
Wow.
So, she kept a purse with Confederate money in her.
That's a part of we don't identify with how big of a part, but for like our grandparents.
Listen to what I said. She kept a purse
with Confederate.
What does that mean?
The South will rise again.
It's coming back.
Yeah. What do you think?
No,
what do you think
ready.
about that? She was just waiting for it to happen.
I don't.
Like it was Northern aggression going to happen.
You know, and that's the thing. Is it okay? My grandmother told me a story about the first time she saw an airplane.
That's wild. My grandpa died when he was 90. One of my grandpas died when he was World War II.
She thought it was a dragon because she had never heard of an airplane before. Like she had no relative context.
You got to ask,
what is this thing coming down? This because it was a crop duster. She lived on a farm.
So it was low flying. Got close to her.
Thought she was going to die.
Dean Plank has told some crazy stories like that about like him growing up basically super rural backwoods and like first time seeing things, or like when he got out of the special forces, people talking about Delta Force on the news, and he's like, it like shattered his belief system because he's like, you don't talk about the Delta Force. Like nobody's supposed to know Delta Force exists, but they're talking about it on the news. But that's different. But he had talked about like when he first, like before he joined the Army, or when he joined the Army, things he saw for the first time. And growing up super rural South, it's like my dad, talks about, he grew up in this place called Hartman. You will pass a place on your way back called Coal Hill. Halfway between Clarksville and Cold Hill on 64 is where my parents and family, where my dad's from. And it's super rural, even in the 70s. But that's all in relation to this conversation we're talking about the South and the South after the Civil War and how wrecked it was.
So interesting enough, my mother's family, Jewish, moved here to Virginia, not here, to Virginia, I guess in the 40s, 50s. They were not allowed to join any swimming pools or country clubs. They were
they were Jewish.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. See, people.
It lingered for quite
people
some
don't
time.
think about. People think marginalized groups, and they're like, oh, African Americans, but like women, like the three most marginalized groups I talk about in U.S. history are women, African Americans.
Well.
Yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, but some of those institutions, some of those things, like, because I have relatives that live in Maryland, right, which is directly
that's a border state, bro.
Look, the culture has none of those things. Like it's almost like you feel that shift in culture, and it's there's still people that live in rural areas that are considered rednecks.
When I went to Asheville, I was surprised at how rural Asheville, North Carolina was. Driving in and stuff, it seemed rural. I don't know if it is.
Oh yeah, well I think most America is though. And
I've driving all over it. I've definitely got that. You get past Amarillo, Texas to like Flagstaff. That's weird.
Yeah. I've driven out west a little ways before, and like when I drove to Oklahoma City, I was, I thought it was crazy how flat the land was because I've never driven.
You driven to Colorado west. Or anything?
Yeah.
That's so you've driven through Kansas.
We went to Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And camped at the base of
Garden of the Gods. Oh, okay.
We did go to Garden of the Gods.
Yeah. Colby and Cora and I, we went a few years ago and went to Red Rocks.
That was amazing.
Yeah. Have you been to Red Rocks concert or anything? Or just go to the park?
We did go to the park. On the way back, we stopped at a extinct volcano.
Oh wow.
In New Mexico.
Cool.
And that's the one thing I want to go back to because apparently you can see the Milky Way from there. And I've never seen the Milky Way before. Have you?
No. But I will say there's something to being. I've been out in the wilderness in Arkansas on this thing called the wilderness portion of the Buffalo River. It's like it's away from civilization in our state anyway. It's like the most remote point in Arkansas. But like I just like went outside to like use the restroom and like looked up at the sky. And I was just like, I'd never seen the sky look like that. And it was probably like 3 a.m., 2 a.m., something like that. But I'd never seen, and it's like, but without the light, like what people call light pollution.
I remember like one experience that I had with the sky when I was young was during one of the meteor showers. And it was the most intense and vivid meteor shower that I could, because any meteor shower since is not really, I've kind of like, but I remember, it was all different colors, and it was just constant, and it was almost like a light fireworks across.
Were
the
you
sky.
Looking through a telescope or just naked eye?
No, I was at a lake way, way, way out in the woods in Virginia.
Nice.
Yeah.
Back on the Civil War, because I've been on a Civil War rabbit hole. Like, because it's fascinating to me since I've been in the Civil War rabbit hole, but like...
This is where, we can start talking about VMI a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, you're blowing my mind earlier. You're blowing my mind a few times today because I just thought you were a jiu-jitsu gangster. But turns out you're like a real gangster.
I'm a rebel. Jiu-jitsu rebel.
Yes.
Gangster.
Man, if the South would not have invaded Maryland a second time, the South had never really lost the battle until Gettysburg. Only Antietam was a draw.
I mean, to be honest, I just don't think it really matters, because I don't think the South would have had the resources to continue a war anyway.
I don't either, but check this out. 1963, July 1st into June 1963, before Gettysburg. The South, Jefferson Davis had a letter written to Abraham Lincoln because we were beating them so bad, asking them if they wanted peace, and that never got delivered because Gettysburg happened and 52,000 people died. And after that is when the South had the manpower to still win before Gettysburg. And that's like a recent revelation to me. I didn't know that until
they didn't have Twitter.
Right, dude. Imagine Jefferson Davis like tweeting like we think Donald Trump's bad. Like imagine like what? Okay, so like that he was like one of the first people like who was a byproduct of like the Missouri Compromise when they were like. Not the Missouri Compromise, Compromise 1850, when they were like, we need two presidents. And ironically, he was there and goes on to be the other president of the South.
The refinement of culture has happened very quickly.
Yeah.
Much as the same as jiu-jitsu.
The real Jefferson Davis. Dude, we were talking about that earlier. Jiu-jitsu's exploded. It used to be cool to be a black belt before we were black belts, might I add.
Yeah.
Especially in Arkansas. Now it's not even cool in Arkansas.
Well, I think that's what the whole training experience is about, because the training cycle is so long, and so much of that dream, so much of that passion is built in is about pursuit of the goal of black belt.
I know the whole mindset, white through brown, is that's what the focus is. White through brown, achieve the black. And it's kind of why I talked about this on a recent podcast, like and have said this to many people, when I accomplished most of my goals, like getting a job as a historian, teaching at college, getting my master's degree, the growth of the gym, like when everything like really popped off all at the same time, I really accomplished all my goals that like I ever had set for myself, like 2 years of one another. Started this podcast, and then I was just like, what do I do now? Like I earned my black belt, like all of these things culminated really all at once. Like my black belt, my job as a historian, this podcast, the growth of the gym, and I was just like, I didn't have any other goals. So it was like I felt in life like I felt when I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's just like, well, what's next?
Somebody once told me getting your black belt is the minimum, and then it's what you do with it.
That's the service to the community side that like judo's big about that. I think about that a lot for like with what like you're doing with your videos, or what I do with my videos is like that's what I do. I like creating stuff. I like writing stuff. I like writing the text for the website.
Pushing the culture forward.
Yes, that's service to the community.
Being an agent of change.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I like how you put the play on agent. You had to do like a James Bond type theme. Like, you got to wear a tuxedo, and you got to do like the 007 Nintendo 64.
It has a lot of plays, man. You know, because there's agents in chemistry.
Yeah.
You know? So
espionage. I mean,
yeah, I do like that. Although, you know what, man, I really stray away from that because I don't know about my acting skills. I don't know about that.
You know,
we'll see.
Cora has a theater degree, so maybe she can teach you some lessons.
I definitely don't think that I have like gotten comfortable enough doing my videos that my personality really comes through, because I feel very robotic when I'm watching it. You know, when I watch it back, I'm like, you know, I'm being a character almost of myself.
It is my thought. I've been YouTubing for over 18 months. Like, you know what got me like really, because I wasn't being encouraged to do it. I was being more discouraged to do it by like people I was like polling about it. But I went to a seminar in Vegas at the trade show with freaking Master Ken, dude. Matt Page, I believe is his name. But, you know, like a Meridote guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He taught a thing about how to, like, making videos and like how his whole story. And I was super inspired after that, and I just went all in. And it has gotten better. I would say, like, today we filmed the seminar. Having somebody that's my audio camera guy. I don't know if are you having anybody like help like do dynamic shots, or are you just doing tripod?
Man, I just do a tripod, and
I did that forever.
Sometimes Catherine will hold a camera for me, and you know, because really to me it's just about like just doing anything, you know, because
just get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a piece of me, right? It's another piece of my expression. You know, this is the culture we live in. You know, this is the medium through which we communicate now, and if you want, you know. You can be bah humbug, or you know, you can engage the medium. You know, you can engage your canvas, and you know, you can be part of the culture, and that's just the way I see it. You know, I don't think that I'm necessarily better, or that I offer something completely original, but you know, it's my way of engaging, and I find it really pleasing that I've finally made it to a point where people think that what I say is interesting.
So, dude, I'm about to send Nate a picture of your face just so he knows what we're doing in here. So here's the thing, like, why I was thinking about Nate here.
Because I just want to say, you know, people maybe other black belts will even dismiss it, but I mean, I haven't only gotten my black belt in the last month. I feel that there has been a sharp shift, and I don't know if that's in my own mind, but even with my interaction with people, you know, in the martial arts school, I feel like has had a very sharp shift, and you know. It's I just find that interesting how because and I will say, even when I'm rolling, I mean, gosh, sometimes I'll do things that I, you know, I don't know if it's a technique that I've ever been taught, but it's like really just because I'm being stubborn, because I'm like, nah, I'm a black belt now, so I can just
fight some bust out of it, man.
Just do whatever I have to do, you know, and you know, that'll get you caught, obviously. But that's kind of the fun of it too, is that I feel relieved of the pressure of chasing black belt, and so, you know, if I do something stupid, like I don't know, I just don't. I thought I would want to smash everybody once I got my black belt, and it's like the complete opposite.
There's a humility there. I felt very humbled when I got promoted to black belt.
Well, I did, because I was extremely humble, because I got my black belt and then went and rolled with Braden and got manhandled.
Dude, I met you and him first on the same day. Okay, so don't be like, I tell that story too, because like I just been promoted to black belt, and I was just like what you were saying at the gym earlier. I rolled with him, and he was a newer purple belt, and he dusted me like 2 or 3 times, and like I taught some legs at like a knee bar defense flow drill at that event, and like I was teaching there, and like I rolled with he and you back to back, and I was like, dude, I'm going back to Arkansas. Like, This jiu-jitsu thing is just too much right now. Like, I've just felt defeated.
So, you know, and here's the thing, you know, jiu-jitsu, your jiu-jitsu, my jiu-jitsu, we all kind of have our individual jiu-jitsu, right? And like, you meet a guy like that and it's like an anomaly where like, I don't have an answer to whatever it is that he's putting into that. So, you know, that's where I was like, wow, I need to go back to school. And there's a lot of jiu-jitsu that I have overlooked because, you know, I was trying to be, you know, what I thought was really good at a very small group of things. And so, you know, I'm really thankful that I had that interaction immediately upon receiving my black belt. And like, he came over and hung out with my family and we had dinner, and so I got to hang out with him quite a lot.
Yeah, he did say you cooked dinner.
Yeah, I cook a mean steak, man.
Yeah, Cora made steak last night.
Yeah, and I use an iron skillet.
Ooh, Dutch oven. Yeah.
Is that really?
I think cast iron, like a cast iron skillet. Yeah.
It's $10 at Walmart, man.
Those are called Dutch ovens, bro. Yeah. My dad, man, he makes fried potatoes and squash, and we were talking about it on the podcast
yesterday. Camping.
Yeah. There's these, I believe they're called Lodge brand, but there is some really nice Dutch ovens out there. And the Core and I don't even think we have one, but we should get one. We have a lot of pots and pans.
I believe Braden liked his medium rare.
Yeah, Core's a medium. I'm a well done guy.
I like mine a solid medium. You know, it really depends. If I go to a steak place, and you know it's a really nice steak place, I'll just tell what do you suggest, and I'll take it however they tell me. You know, because
I'm okay with a little bit of pink.
Usually at a nice steakhouse, they know what the different types of meat and how they need to be served, or what the chef's specialty for that. You know, so I just go with whatever they recommend.
Yeah,
I'm not really particular because, man, I'll eat almost anything.
Yeah. I've been to some like just traveling like steakhouses in Vegas and stuff. Like I've been to some nice. Man, I can't even remember. There's just one we've been to a couple of times inside the Venetian. That's really popular. Some chef's name. But the New York strips there, man, they're different. Like, you go to a super legit steakhouse. So like, and it's not I will eat a rare steak because I've had rare steak. It's not how.
Let me tell you that I have had expensive steaks. Maybe not extremely expensive steaks. I wouldn't, but I swear, one of the best steaks I ever had was a $30 steak at this restaurant. Where is it? Is it in Bentonville?
Which one? The Preacher's?
The Preacher's Son in Bentonville. Everybody go there, have a steak. That thing is magnificent.
Nate texted us back and said,
"Fire."
Yes, with these hands, with the hands in the center.
I love training with Nate. You know, and I was
he's
talking
one of my
about
best
that
bros
because it's such a there's so much movement. You know what I mean?
He will drown you in the movement. He will take you out and just move with you. Like, he and I rolled a couple weekends ago. He was in town on a Sunday, and too, he was doing stuff. I complimented him because Nate's never been like a big time butterfly player, but he was assassinating me with his butterflies.
So let me tell you. So I roll with Nate, man. I can roll with Nate, you know, and but we do stand up or do anything that introduces MMA skills, and I feel I feel at the bottom of the totem pole real quick.
So you've done martial arts, you've done striking and everything, like pretty much your whole life.
I started taekwondo when I was 7. Yeah, I grew up in karate, taekwondo, kickboxing, but with Nate we did wall work, for instance. Last weekend we did wall work, dude. I couldn't. Okay, I think the first time maybe he underestimated me, and I wall walked up on him real quick, and then I didn't get up again.
Dude, have you ever tried to keep him on the wall in a striking exchange?
No, it's not gonna happen.
Dude, here's like, I remember he just like, he would constantly like laterally outmove me. Like I couldn't keep him on the wall. I couldn't keep him from getting ahead of me.
I'm surprised at how quickly he moves and how hard he hits. And it's not really because he's trying to hit hard. It's just the result
He snaps
of his
it
technique,
all in.
man. It's his technique, because you can tell, you can look at him and like he's not being vicious. You know, it's just what it is.
Play with fire.
Yeah.
So Nate and I were talking about this. This was like back on the black belt conversation. So maybe it's the things that you're talking about that you're doing, or that people do that make you quote unquote great, or make you sort of valuable to pushing the culture forward, or just within your own circles. Because think about this, like, you think, he might, but like, do you think Justin Rader knows the way that like people like you and I and Nate perceive him? You know what I'm saying? So like, I've never really been around or met anyone that was truly great that even had very much awareness of that they were, of what they truly meant to people, or how valuable their contributions were. And I think that I run into that a lot.
He's because even if he was aware of it, being the type of person he is, like I don't even know that really means a lot, because it's about the chase. I would assume, I don't know him extremely well, but I would assume it's about the chase, because it's what it is for all of us, right? Like I don't really care. That's the thing, is like, I don't really care about like who's watching my videos or whatever. Like, like I'm out there trying to get better, right? And I'm just,
it's a part of the chase.
I don't think that the world champion really is much different. Like, I think that their pursuit is much more intense than what we could probably imagine, their journey. But at the same time, I don't think that they're ever like, all right, I'm cool, I won enough championships and I'm good now, and I'm just going to bask in this glory of followers.
It's never satiated for people like that. You think Gordon Ryan's ever going to be like satiated? Like, he's going to have enough.
But I do think that you can. I do think that you can use that energy in a different way, right? Like you don't always necessarily have to make that energy of being, the pursuit of being greater towards being a jiu-jitsu champion.
So do you think being a jiu-jitsu champion is even a measure of greatness?
I hope not.
Have you competed a whole lot over the years?
Man, I competed a lot when I competed a lot as a kid in karate, like a lot, and I competed quite a bit as a white belt and a blue belt and purple belt, and maybe only a handful of times as a brown belt.
That's the same with me, man. I got burned out. Like purple through brown was like insane.
I think I did a fight. I was a purple belt in my last fight, but I didn't fight again after my son was born.
Did you have any MMA fights or anything like that too?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Kickboxing?
Yes.
Boxing?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Not for I did boxing club at VMI. Got smashed because I thought I could do stand up because I had a Taekwondo black belt, bro. What are you talking about? Yeah, I can. Yeah, no. I know stand up, and I got smashed. It was horrible.
So, VMI.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get which you went really, straight there after high school.
Which is really the seed of why I'm relevant as a jiu-jitsu black belt. So yes, let's go ahead.
All right. So, how did you get plugged into there? You tell me your whole background with that.
Well, I think I was just a delusional teenager.
Did you get into ROTC at first or something like that, or?
No, man, I was a wild kid. And I thought I'm gonna, I don't know what. I had this image in my mind that I was gonna, I wanted to be this soldier type. I'll spare you the dramatic version, but I thought I wanted to, let's say be a Navy SEAL or something, right? But
do you have to be a member of a branch of the armed forces to go to VMI?
No.
Okay. If you graduate from there, like, is it? Look,
man,
it's not.
Like,
so it's a military college,
honesty,
but you're not in the military.
In all honesty, I was a very emotionally unstable teenager. Okay. And I made a poor decision based on my personality type. I thought I'm going to go to military college. Okay. And so I went, and wow, like a month after I got there, 9/11 happened. Yes.
Cadet
bro,
Bishop.
It was fallout. It was fallout, bro. It was wild. It got weird. It got really, really weird, really quick.
In what ways?
So many kids had parents that worked in the Pentagon that were powerful people in Washington, D.C., that are powerful people in New York. I mean,
yeah, I forget where you were at.
VMI is
it's a feeder.
It's kind of a prestigious place to be.
Where did Snowden go to school? Did he go? I've just been on the Snowden rabbit hole.
I don't know, but I do think it was a military academy, but I do not think it was. I think maybe I heard it was West Point, but I don't know. I could be completely wrong about that.
Yeah, Robert E. Lee graduated like second in his class in West Point, if I'm not mistaken.
Man, a
lot of those guys.
All the Confederate heroes are at VMI. So it was also part of my grandfather's dream to go to VMI, and he was never able to. I don't know. I don't know the entire story, but he was a huge VMI guy.
Yeah.
Back when VMI and Virginia Tech used to play each other in football.
Okay, so is there any sort of weird rift? I've wondered this recently about like Virginia and West Virginia, because West Virginia was a state that was created during the Civil War.
No, I don't live. I never lived close enough to the border where that was really a thing, and that part of the state is very rural, and so I don't know, I don't really have much experience to speak of, but in the places that I live, no.
That was one thing Snowden was talking about, was that how much like all of the surrounding areas are feeders for the
there
complexes.
Were members of the Bishop family that went to West Virginia because they disagreed with the other members of the Bishop family that stayed in the South.
Okay, so check this out. I just found this out yesterday. Before the Civil War even broke out, he freed 150 of his slaves.
Really?
Yeah.
In what context?
He had, and he didn't need them to. He was, I guess, like idly wealthy. He freed his slaves, 150 of them.
Yeah.
Like people were freeing their slaves in the early 1800s in Virginia, actually.
I think, that era of American history is one of the most misunderstood, because there's so much context, and anything political is extremely hard to dissolve, because you have to, you really, in order to make an opinion, there's a lot of information you have to digest, and everybody wants to just pick a side and stick with it, instead of allowing themselves to be educated. That still is a very touchy subject.
In what regard? The Civil War?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Listen to what I'm saying, man. My grandmother told me to sign up for the Sons of the Confederate Veterans.
You would have gone on a list, bro.
I had a bar mitzvah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. So
some interesting context.
So and so my whole childhood was riddled with these really interesting
paradigms.
Yeah. And I can remember being 4 years old and being like extremely aware of like, wow, you people are crazy, because I remember there was a big struggle over my religious education, and I was like, well, I mean, it's God, right?
Yeah.
I didn't, and that's still the road I take even now as an adult. I think because I saw people go through that. But as being a child and going to church with my grandmother and going to Senate, now I will tell you they are distinct experiences. But there is something about being part of a congregation of people that are coming together for the common purpose of spiritual worship. And it is unfortunate that a lot of contemporary religious practice has a lot of ornateness to the point of, you know, being very much a worship of the material, or, you know, rather than true the pursuit of spiritual growth. But yeah,
dude, it's fascinating to talk with people from the North too, honestly. Like, that's everybody I sit down with. I want to know more about their experiences, where they're from, because that, like what you're talking about, is like people talking about the Civil War. I'm like, yeah, so what are your thoughts on Essex Junto and the Compromise of 1820? And they can't put that in context, but they have these far-flung opinions about this event, and it's like you don't know the overall context of the history.
So to me, because I've been engaged in martial arts since I was a child, and I now know this kind of gets weird, and I don't, because everything that we do as humans, like every pursuit we do, is imperfect, right? So I don't like profess, and I don't mean this in like a righteous way, but like when I approach like what I'm doing with martial arts, like it really is like it is kind of, it's almost like a religious procession. Like it's a spiritual experience to me, because like I try to have it be like the purest expression that I'm capable of, because it means so much to me. Like I love doing it. I'm passionate about it, and I know that because I had instructors that made such a huge impact on my life, that continue to. It's amazing the transformation that happened in my life because of martial arts. And so for me to just be able to have the opportunity to, you know, be able to now be that element of transmission to someone else, to the next generation, you know, now I can plant seeds. Like, it feels really good. Because, you know, it's not all about being a world champion. Thank God. It's
really not, dude. And like, kind of like off what I was saying earlier, is like just sitting here talking to you, like you don't even get the value you provide for people currently. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we never perceive that way. Like, so for example, like you think if you're like Jason Ryan's a boring ass basic white dude, and I had him on the podcast. Who? Yeah, Jason Ryan.
Who?
Exactly.
No.
But like, dude, here's the thing. Like, I wouldn't ask you to come down, and like wouldn't want you to come on the podcast or teach me jiu-jitsu moves, being like a black belt and owning a large school and all these other things, if I didn't see the value. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like we're the last person to see the value in ourselves oftentimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's I think a lot about that, not necessarily in like, I know I'm providing so much, but how like people don't get the value they're even providing for me.
But to me, the beginning of the process was saying that there is no I, like there is no value in self, because I feel like what I was and where I was when I started was not where anyone wanted to be. And the way that I began my journey was through kind of like a disassociation of, you know, self through training, right? I mean, because it's, you know, and through that kind of like, you know, through that practice, you know, it becomes a moving meditation of sorts, and it can take on something else entirely, you know, because I feel like because of my experience in martial arts, I've had several, just instantly I'd have like a newfound interest in music, and I'd want to pick up a guitar and start learning. And I can't play guitar now, but, you know, martial arts inspired me to grow as a person, you know, and I think it was because when I heard "Take Your Ego Out," man, I really dove deep into all the philosophy and everything, and I picked up Tao of Jeet Kune Do and read it 12 times over. And
dude, okay, it's not over there. It was sitting right there for several weeks. Like you said,
you can't, you know, just because, and I know that's not Bruce Lee's thoughts emptied out on the paper, but that, look, this, what you're doing right now, I mean, this is essentially like the modern Bruce Lee, right? Because like this is, you know, that the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, like, you know, people will look at that like, oh, I mean, that's a martial arts Bible. Well, not really. Like, it's a bunch of other people's thoughts, like just kind of amassed together and arranged and, you know, put in a way that you can kind of digest it, right? And in that way, like his sources of information is kind of like an inspiration to other people, but because, you know, it gives them steps, you know, hooks on the ladder to climb up on it. And really, you know, that's all we're doing, you know. I mean, I can't be as good as Justin Rader, but I can affect, you know, the people in my immediate community. You know, I can affect the kids, you know. I can, the kids in the jiu-jitsu classes that I teach, they think I'm really good. So
the kids look at you the way really you look at Justin Rader.
I am so good compared to 10-year-old kids.
Dude,
right,
have you seen those memes? It's like kid,
they can beat me up yet.
Adult who identifies as 10-year-old annihilates in kids class or something like that.
Yet until we're there. Look, man, who's that 16-year-old kid that just annihilated somebody?
Oh, Gordon Ryan's little brother. Isn't he still 16 or is he 18?
I think
now?
he's older, but but you know, and that look, man, that's my whole thing about getting the black belt and the whole like humility element is it's like you realize, like, look, man, nobody gave me a black belt because of who I tap.
Yeah,
you know, like, and look, I have a little bit of an ego. Let's be real. I mean, just being practical. Like, I feel like I'm good at jiu-jitsu, but it's like I told you earlier. I look at Justin Rader and I say, Justin Rader does jiu-jitsu. Everybody else is trying to do what Justin Rader does. I don't think, when I look at Justin, I don't think I'm doing the same thing. You know, because it's like, okay. And you know, so, you know, but, and that's why, thank God, I mean, hey, man, I was a brown belt long enough that I honestly didn't care. I honestly,
you've been training 16 years, is that right?
Yeah, I didn't care anymore, and that's why it was so powerful for me to actually receive a black belt, because I didn't know if I actually ever would. But you know, we say martial arts, right? And beating people up, and man, you know, shout out to James Houston, who I made an ignorant statement to on Facebook one time, because he made a comment about martial arts, and I was like, I do real martial arts, and he's a very successful martial artist and businessman, and he just made a very nice comment to me, like, you know, because everybody knows how successful he is, and he was like, you know, not, and I had my own little martial arts group, and I was not doing so hot at the time. And he was like, you know, not everybody does martial arts for the same reasons that you do. And I had this light bulb moment, and I was like, yeah. and that was why my circle was so small. It's because like, you know, I couldn't see past like my own motivations, and so like only people that like wanted to be.
Yeah, I used to. My main focus was rooted in seeking competitors to training as a competitor, training competitors in general. And then I had a shift like that where I was like, okay, that's going to just pretty much be about 10% of the people here.
I tell you what, man, for me, the change, because I honestly just don't think, and maybe it was, I'm not going to say it because this could be broad. I'm not going to say anybody's fault. It could have been my fault, whatever. But I just don't think I came up in jiu-jitsu in a healthy culture where I was from. And so upon coming here as a brown belt and coming in what I did at Inferno, I was just so blown away and so relieved, because there was just so much more positivity than what I was used to, and in a way that I felt like my jiu-jitsu immediately just improved so quickly. Because I had people that were like, oh, hey, oh, man, you know what? That wasn't bad, but, like, let me show you this. Or, like, you know, you do that okay. But, like, and just, it was like, man, and that's what I loved about, like, all of y'all. Is like, everybody was, like, yeah, because, I mean, I feel like a lot of other places, it was always, like, it was kind of cutthroat or competitive. Not everywhere I trained at, but you know, it was definitely a much more productive environment. And I think that, you know, so much of, I just didn't know that was out there.
Yeah, that's got to be nice.
There's a lot more.
Because I've only ever been with the same people.
I had no idea how much jiu-jitsu was in Northwest Arkansas. It blows me away. Not even Northwest Arkansas, but all across the state. You know, I'm going to go see Johnny, hopefully.
Did you go to the AGF a few months ago, a couple weeks ago? Yeah, that way, like, once you see that, you'll see representatives from all over the state.
So I tore, I had a knee injury. Okay.
You got
and I just started rolling like a week before I got my black belt.
Did you have something torn or what?
I never went to the doctor, but you know, I couldn't walk well for a long time. I couldn't bend my knee all the way.
Outside, inside?
I assume it was the outside of my meniscus, because it was
like lateral cartilage, maybe LCL. I've torn that before, and it's no fun.
It was like 9 to 12 weeks. I didn't roll. Yeah, 9 to 12 weeks. But you know, when I was a purple belt, my best friend tore my pec, ripped my pectoralis major insertion from the humerus. Like, you know, I don't have much of my pec left now. And
are you severely limited by that? We were talking about that earlier,
dude. So I rolled for 9 months with one arm.
Like,
the purple belt.
Did you know when the injury happened?
Oh
did
yeah,
you wait a long
I
time
thought my
to go to the
gi
doctor?
tore, but then the immense amount of pain set in, and they had to take me to the hospital.
Did you go into shock or anything like that?
So, you know, they took me to the ER, and they're sitting me in the ER, and they were like, all right, man, all right, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it? And I was like, well, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know. And they were like, yeah, okay. They were like, so what drugs do you want? And I was like, I don't want any. And they were like, what? And I was fucked up. It was horrible. I was sweating, and like, it was just extreme pain.
Wow.
I could feel myself bleeding on the inside, you know. And so, this guy was like, "You're fucking crazy." He told me that, and I was just, but you know, when I dislocated my elbow, my back of my hand was.
Dude, that happened to one of my guys in a fight once.
So they put me on hydrocodone. Then, and I don't think it really helped. It didn't stop my pain. So when they offer me those pain medications, number one, okay, and number two, I just talked about being spiritual, right? Okay, so here's my thing. my best friend fucking ripped my arm apart, okay? And thank God it was my best friend.
Was it this guy that you were talking about earlier?
What we do, like, we practice fucking trying to kill each other and dismember and, like, completely, like we practice.
He took that shit
trying to disable someone permanently. But that's the thing, is we get carried away. We get so disillusioned. Like, we're kind of like, because it's like tap, and then we're like, yeah, ha ha. But at the same time, you know, you have to take a bit of seriousness to your training, because, you know, somebody can seriously get hurt. And so the point of what I'm getting at, okay, so hey, what we do is real. So I wanted to feel that consequence. I didn't want it to be dull, because I was like, no, like, I practiced this, and look, it happened. So I can take a pill and, like, forget about it, or I can remember for the rest of my fucking life what it was like to have my arm ripped off, and then see what kind of effect that has on my training.
How old were you when this happened? Like, you said 5 or 6 years ago?
Maybe 30.
Dude, I would have been like, give me extra drugs.
So I went and I sat in the ER, and my girlfriend had to take my friend that just tore my pec. She had to take him to work, so they had to leave me. And I was like, whatever, you know. I was like, yeah, man, go. It's cool. I'm cool. And I sat there and I closed my eyes, and I did my deep breathing techniques, and it was the most euphoric experience of my life. And I am very thankful for that injury in a lot of ways, because it made me realize how real it is, and it made me, like, take my training a lot more seriously. And, you know, and I take a lot more, when I'm teaching jiu-jitsu, you know, I take a lot of pride in teaching jiu-jitsu that's not going to get somebody hurt, and I do not allow an environment that's going to allow somebody else to get hurt, because I know, you know, he was my friend. He did, you know, he's trying to kill me, but he didn't know he was going to do that to me. Yeah. He was just ignorant, you know.
Was he the same rank as you, or newer?
No, I was a purple belt. He was a fresh, I don't know, he might have been a white, or, you know, he was a fresh blue belt. And he got a hold of my arm, and I was like, you know, I was fucking with him. And no. And it's because here's the thing, man. You let a 16-year-old scrawny kid get a hold of your arm and stand up over top of you, like, they can rip your arm off if they don't even know what an armbar is. Right? Like, you know, to be honest, like, we practice this art and this science and everything. Hey, grab a hold of something and twist it the wrong way. Like,
or twist it too quickly. Yeah, while somebody's relaxed, or, you
know, I mean, really, and like, think, you know, we don't allow that, because, you know, there's no fun in that game. But honestly, I mean, that's really all it has to be. It doesn't have to be, you know, the whole technique, you know, because, I mean, that's what a lot of the jiu-jitsu I was taught at first was, hey, grab and pull.
Yeah, I know.
And if it doesn't, then you smash it first. And if you can't, you fold it in half, and then you smash it, and you grab it and you rip it, and then twist and then pull it up. Yeah, that was the jiu-jitsu I learned.
Do you have a better metaphor when teaching students now? Because I have a way I explain to people on finishing submissions that I think.
So somewhere immediately after I was injured. You know, and I rolled for 9 months with one arm, so I made it a point to tap everybody I could while I was rolling with one arm, because it was kind of like, well, I mean, you know, yeah, of course I got it.
Yeah, I got one.
But, you know, immediately I realized how much technique was lost in the greed of trying to tap our training partners. Because, yeah, okay, Brian, you and I are both black belts. And one of us can grab an armbar and pull and finish it, right? Yes, sure. because you know how to finish an armbar and put your hips into it, and there's no way that, you know, or, you know, if we're flow rolling, like, in trying to allow each other to work, like, you know that, like, there's 50 transitions that you can go into, and that's my whole point about being a black belt and, like, learning the rest of jiu-jitsu, is it's like, you know, I've been so focused on, like, when somebody tries to armbar me, just getting my elbow to the mat so they can't armbar me. Like, that's it. That's all I've ever tried to do. Right? And I've been really, really good at just not giving people opportunities for armbars. But, like, I probably really suck at defending armbars.
Man, if you think about it, and this may just be true for us, me, whatever, but, like, I feel like submission defense is one of the least covered things in all of jiu-jitsu.
So I have always taught, okay, the way that I like teaching jiu-jitsu, because I've taught other things, but the way that I like teaching jiu-jitsu is, okay, the first half of class, okay, this is the armbar. Second half of class is the armbar defense. Because, you know, especially with beginners, okay, let's say we're doing an armbar. The person on top almost kind of has to learn how to react, not like an idiot that's just going to collapse and fall over, right? And so, okay, so we get to that, and the person does the armbar, okay. And then it's like, you know, all right, while our mind's here, how do we stop this? Because then that opens up to maybe what you teach next week, or it doesn't have to, but, you know, I just feel like teaching submissions as the objective in class is not always the best method of teaching jiu-jitsu, but it's so common because that's what everybody wants to see.
I get in a habit of teaching a lot of chains, you know, like where it's not top bottom per se.
That's what I'm saying, is like there's a transitional element in it, and so then you know, you're talking about like a whole, you know, host, or like a whole organism of concepts, you know. Because when you talk about change, you're talking about there's got to be more than one position. I mean, or
yeah,
even
also
if even if it's a position, you know, Kessa to reverse Kessa, you often don't say in the exact same position for a series of movements.
Exactly. Yeah, but like I'm big on, like, we start from standing a lot. So it'd be like, let's say like an inside trip to a knee slide pass to Kessa to an armbar, for example. But you know, it might take me a couple of passes to teach that sequence in technique instruction. But that and flow drills, man, those are probably my two of my most favorite ways to teach, because anytime I'm teaching like a sub defense, I'll often encapsulate that inside of a flow drill.
Well, I like flow drills, and I think they're great for beginners and for advanced practitioners, just because, you know, it really just gives you gross muscle movement to be repetitive with, you know, and I find that that's what helps me grab on to new concepts, you know, because I'm trying to try all kinds of new stuff now, and that's what helps me grab on to those things, is I think of like a gross muscle movement, and I try to be really repetitive about it until I get kind of a flow feel to it, and then, you know, I find it more digestible in a way that I can organically add it to what I already do, because then it's about doing the movement. It's not about trying to accomplish the movement, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Like, I've been back and forth on, like, because there's that, and then I like the transfer of learning into, let's say I'm doing hip escapes. Like, I learn every year I do jiu-jitsu, I learn a new way to apply that move that I got taught how to do when I was a white belt, you know. But it's like,
that is you building your invisible jiu-jitsu. That is something that I've just now become self-aware of, because I never had the ability to tap people, you know. Like, I could always set up, smash people, tap people, right? I mean, sure, but I don't know. I got my black belt. I was like, yeah, man, I can do all this stuff, right? I mean, that was like, I don't know what happened in my mind. And like now,
Dude,
I just pop off these arm bars that like, I've never even tried them before.
Isn't it weird? Like I would, have you been married before?
No.
Okay. So like you've remarked on this several times, and like a couple of times that I just like asked, like commented on already, but like it seems like very much so when you got your black belt, you did have like a shift of consciousness. Like I never would have thought when because Corey and I were together for like 7 years when we got married, and we've been married for 3 now. But I would have never thought that the night of the wedding ceremony, that when we got married, day after, that I would feel like the way you're describing right now, there's like a difference in how I perceived myself in relation to something else, her. Like in us, it was just, I never would have imagined getting married that it was going to be different like that. I mean, it's the same way you're describing like when you got your black belt, because I felt that too with like the video thing. It's like I started putting out videos when I was a brown belt, and like I remember seeing myself in one of the videos wearing a brown belt, and I was super weird about it. And then I was like, that's stupid. I'm not going to let that stop me from putting this stuff out there. There's tons of brown belts that do. There's tons of purple. It doesn't matter. This is what I'm doing for the best. Like my goals and agenda is better my students and all this.
So, and this is kind of the whole thing about my videos, because anyone could look at my video and be like, man, oh, you're missing that move right there. Or like, oh, look, like he didn't do this, or like you didn't do that. But like, I am not trying to be an authority on the technique, but I am an element of transmission of information. And so like, I am conveying an idea, right? And look, man, like I'm not the greatest. I'm not going to be the greatest, but you know, I can provide that spark in someone so that they can be their greater self, right? And so, you know, because how many techniques that you have learned from your instructors do you do exactly like your instructor? But you know what? We all do techniques better than our instructors. Right, and so it's like I don't have to be like correct, but like if I can show somebody, all right, you see what's happening right here. What you want to do is you want to be over here. No, not now, no. Wait. Okay, right now. Right, like that's what I'm trying to convey, and that's so hard to convey because everybody wants to be right, especially doing videos. Everybody's like, oh, you missed this deal, you missed that.
I just want to be logical. Honestly, like that's my main goal.
There's so much to the live element of a technique that you cannot convey that is so relevant to what we're talking about that it's like, you know, I mean, it's right, it's wrong, but like even if it's wrong, like dude, we just talking about a kid, you know, that's 22 years old that does jiu-jitsu that we haven't seen before. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
glad that dude's doing videos. He's been putting them out.
Yeah, dude, I've been posting all of his stuff because
I shared one of them to the group the other day for sure.
Yes, he is, and that's exactly what I mean about, you know, I don't know. I mean, not that. God, I'm not gonna like sit out and die out the pasture, but I honestly feel like, you know, real jiu-jitsu is about what the blue belts and the purple belts are doing. Because, you know, it's our job to keep up. Because, good God, I mean, we're dumping everything we know into them, trying to think that we're really like. I want everybody to think I'm a really good instructor, so I'm going to teach them all this stuff. And like, we think like they're not listening, and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, it's like, oh man, like you're really good at that. Where did you learn that?
I had a guy just promoted to blue belt after 2 years. He was like, he's a student, so he's like gone a little bit and over the summers and stuff. But like the dude is a savage, and like I'm just like, man, like.
And there are enough people doing jiu-jitsu in America now that we just have to admit that just like any other sport, that there are going to be people that they're better than everybody else, even if they've been doing it for 6 months. They might tap everybody in the room, and it might be the craziest thing ever, but there ain't nothing you can do about it. But that's what I'm saying. We can't be like, Oh, well, like, just give that guy a black belt and let him start teaching classes. Because that's not, that's not how we got here.
Yeah, why do you think there's such a difference in the integrity of the art of jiu-jitsu on rank like that versus more some of your traditional martial arts? I've thought about that so many times because like the 2 to 4 year
I think jiu-jitsu's on its way out, bro. How do you feel about that? I think the integrity of jiu-jitsu is whatever it wants to be. It's still at a shifting point where it is gaining so much popularity, and it's very hard to tell what it's going to be. But I grew up doing Taekwondo, and I lived through the transition in Taekwondo where it was like, holy shit, that guy does Taekwondo, you better watch out, to all of a sudden it was like, that foot is not going to hurt me. What are you going to do, bro? Like, nobody was concerned about Taekwondo after 1992, right? UFC happened, and it was like Jiu-Jitsu, right? And so, but then, because what happened, because like I said, I was a kid, and like when I learned, it was using the ball of the foot to kick to the throat, to kick to the solar plexus, to kick to the groin. Like, I established that skill very early on. And then it was like, I can remember being at black belt conference as a child, and it was like, you can't do this anymore. And our instructors got upset, and then they split. There was a civil war in our Taekwondo organization, and my instructor was the one that went and started his own organization with all the other younger instructors. So, I think, and a lot of that came about because the influence of sport, because it came not about ball of the foot used as a kick for self-defense, but 3 points for a jump spin hook kick with the foam dip pads, and you can't use your heel. You have to use the bottom of your foot in like a slapping action. And so, that's when the emphasis became about the sport, and like the form and function of Taekwondo changed dramatically in its presentation in the classroom, like right in front of my eyes. And now, having taken me 16 years to achieve black belt, I now have seen that same trend in jiu-jitsu, where I feel that there is so much an emphasis on sport, and it's not a bad thing because it draws attention to the sport and people get to be good at it. And I'm glad that there are people out there that can make a living doing jiu-jitsu. But it is its own thing, and it changes how that information is presented.
I think I get what you're saying with it, like being on its way out. Like I think things they're coming in waves. Like, think about this. Like, think about when point sparring started being a thing. More so, at some point, someone was like, "Hey, we need to watch out for our brains a little bit more." And here we are again in the post UFC era you just mentioned, with all this hyper awareness about CTE and brain damage and all this stuff. And it's like we haven't had this conversation before. It's kind of weird. It's like the resurgence of boxing and stuff in the United States. It's like we kind of forgot about brain damage as a culture.
Well, but I also think, because of UFC, people are becoming aware of the effectiveness of all the martial arts. And so people no longer look to jiu-jitsu as the end-all, be-all of answers to martial arts. And so I just think that when I say that, jiu-jitsu's on its way out, I mean, in no way do I mean to diminish jiu-jitsu, because it is my primary love for martial arts, but at the same time, if somebody told me, hey, like, I want to protect my family, me and myself, in a hand-to-hand combat situation against one, possibly two attackers, I'm not going to say do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Because I just think that there are elements of the system that can provide that skill, but it is not the best martial arts for that type of specialization. And so, its best application is for the ground fighting effects. And
I would argue that that's jiu-jitsu being done super incorrectly.
Well, and that's my whole thing, right? Is like modern jiu-jitsu has been completely removed from judo or any type of concentration on the stand-up arts, right? So it's like
as a sport,
it's like, wait a minute, so how do we just magically get here? And that's what I'm saying is like the sport, it's like, yeah, no, okay, we can like just sit down and start going, and that's fine because like not everybody wants to like punch each other's brains out, but at the same time, like we have to be truthful that it is not the same thing. So we have to be careful about saying, now when we teach this jiu-jitsu, this is a superior martial art. Is it, or is what you're teaching the superior strategy to win a jiu-jitsu tournament? And I think that is an important distinction.
More people. So, would follow-up question to that is: would you say more people are teaching jiu-jitsu right now for sport application versus because, dude, like this book right here has got knife and gun defense. We did all stand up in my jiu-jitsu class. I think
in this era, it can be whatever the practitioner wants it to be. Because and that's the thing is like now we have enough black belts and high ranks just to meet. I mean, think about how many black belts are here in Northwest Arkansas. Imagine that, the difference from that just 10 years ago, right? So it's like a lower rank. If shout out to Jason Ryan, if a lower rank wants combatives training or like some kind of opinion or gun or knives, they can ask Jason Ryan, or ankle locks. They can ask Jason Ryan. You know what I'm saying? Like.
Who?
Yeah, but I'm just saying that there are so many avenues of specialization.
There really are. With like weeping style, it's like that, or aikido, or like those are what I would describe as like a nook and cranny avenue of specialization. Like Hickson's got an aikido black belt. Like I've been studying a bunch of aikido, but all that's done is accentuate my jiu-jitsu and being able to provide it more of a way like what we're talking about.
I think why jiu-jitsu is so good is because it encompasses the most practical elements of the most martial arts, because there's some throwing elements in there, and it's about leveraging the body and wedges, and submission holds are not always about like beating someone unconscious, and so like it's a very effective means to end a fight, and that's something you can't do in karate. Like you can't stand up and punch each other as hard as you can in the head over and over and just think that you're going to train at a high level the next day, but you can armbar each other and choke each other over and over and over and over and over. And in that way, that's why jiu-jitsu practitioners get so good, is because like you got a bunch of room full of monsters, like they're actually trying to choke you unconscious, because if you don't tap, they will rip you apart or you will go unconscious, right? And if they're your friends, they'll take you to the hospital afterwards, or they'll wake you up.
Until they have to go to work.
But, that is what we're doing.
What are your thoughts on combat jiu-jitsu? Or some of the other splinters of the direction that art's going?
I think all of it's great, man. I love all of it. I used to be like, oh, I like it, but nah, man. Like, like whatever these guys want to do, man. I think it's awesome because, it's that big now. It's that big that it can be all these things, and it doesn't have to be, and especially not from somebody like me. Like, who am I to say that jiu-jitsu should be this or should be that? Now, I will be the first person to say that's some bullshit if I see some bad, fake, some fake stuff. But, as far as what we're talking about, combat jiu-jitsu versus sport jiu-jitsu versus self-defense jiu-jitsu. The self-defense jiu-jitsu that you might get at the jiu-jitsu gym in the mall at your local mall or whatever. Like all that's good because there's a lot of different reasons why people pursue martial arts, and it doesn't have to be the same for everybody. So I got out of military school, and not soon after that, got a job instructing.
Like Jiu-Jitsu or Taekwondo?
Taekwondo. Like 3 years old to adult. Like fresh out of military school.
How long did you go to military school? Back on that topic, we don't have to discuss your okay.
But you know, it was intense, right? And it changed me because I realized how stupid I was and how immature I was because it conditioned me to wake up.
So what'd you do? So you're Taekwondo instructing. What did you do after?
Well, so I was real intense and I was really good, but you know, so I would have parents that would say, you know, I mean, little Johnny, like you're pushing him pretty hard, and like I just thought that you know that's what I was supposed to do.
Thank you, Mom and Dad. That's why we're here.
Exactly, right? But I mean, I was really intense, you know. And I went to Master Thomas, Eddie Thomas in Salem, Virginia, who runs American Freestyle Karate, and he's in you know, the martial arts, several martial arts Hall of Fames, and he's 9th degree, I believe, in Shotokan. And I talked to him, and I was like, I just want them to be their best selves, and like, and this was my experience, and like, I just want to push them so that they reached this point that I reached. And he said, did I ever treat you like that? And like all of a sudden it was like, oh, like, cause he was always so subtle with me. It was always really funny. And immediately I was like, wow, you know,
isn't that weird that like too, I kind of opposite a story. I had a mentor when I was in college, and I was her assistant even for a long time, and we kind of falling out, as a matter of fact. She was super intense, but she would always gripe at the students. But like in hindsight now, I'm like, she was complaining to people that weren't even there. Like it was the students that weren't coming to class or this or that, but she was always like talking shit or scolding somebody. But it was like, it was a sort of a passive aggressive, like they weren't there, or like the people that didn't come to class. But it's like the good students like myself got to hear about it, you know. But it like, and too, like, so as a teacher, I became a teacher, and I started becoming aware of all these things. Like I was doing that to my students in the classroom. I didn't even realize it. So it's like what you're saying, like it wasn't even done to you and you were doing it. So then I have those things too.
So this is what I am most concerned with as a black belt, because I feel the most about how I came up through jiu-jitsu, because I got my black belt for no other reason than I am the most stubborn asshole that I can be.
You kept showing up.
Yeah. And you know, and hey man, like I admittedly, like I wanted to quit. Catherine, you know, had a talk with me at one point and like bought me a black belt, because she was like, no, because I had such an experience that like, man, I had a bitter taste, and you know, but I am extremely concerned and interested in how now that I'm in a position, you know, to be in that position, you know, now I'm in a position to be an authority. I'm extremely concerned with how that culture is shaped and what people really think about it. Because we as instructors have a completely different perception than what we think our students receive. You know, because I and that was the thing, is like I came into Inferno, and like I'm the brand new student, so like the white belts and everybody else talk to me like I'm just you know, in anybody, right? And you know, people like, you know, let me in on things that like I have no idea that's going on, because you know, or just, or even will, you know, having a conversation with a white belt on how difficult class is for them is so like refreshing to me in a way, because you know, I gear so much of my training towards like suiting my own purposes, and that's good for me, but that's not good for this white belt that really I should be helping them get to where I'm at. and so I'm concerned with, trying to reshape the energy that I take towards teaching, not to serve those interests, but to actually build a better culture that, where there's better jiu-jitsu being taught, right? Because I mean, I would hope that any student that I teach jiu-jitsu to, by the time they get their black belt, they can kill me, hopefully. Otherwise,
that's part of the goal is that they are better and different and know more than we did at that level.
Absolutely.
That is passing the torch on. I mean, because the things that I've learned, like at brown belt or as I've gotten to become a black belt and recontextualize them and be like, I wish I would learn that is when I was a white belt. And then my white belt to get to learn that. Like there's a sweep that Jack Toffer taught me last time he was here. It was kind of like a flower sweep, but like a failed arm drag. And but you don't go under the leg. You don't. And then he showed a version of a flower sweep I'd never seen. I was just like, what?
There's so much jiu-jitsu that's contextual. And I think that's what the whole invisible jiu-jitsu thing is, because it's very hard to convey it in like, in a step-by-step sense. But it's like when you grab a hold of somebody and you drag them a little bit and you're like, all right, you feel that right there? And it's like, yeah, and it's like, all right, what you got? and it's like, because that is the movement. Because like if you say, push them forward, scoot your hips out, you don't end up in the same position. You know what I'm saying?
Order of operations can be
like, okay,
fuzzy.
Great example. The video I did, and everybody's talking about Gordon Ryan's armbar sweep from 80cc. Right? That, yeah, it's a move, but I mean, it's a failed armbar.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of sweeps from that position, and I swear, like I've been doing that armbar since I was a purple belt. Swear. Why? Because I had one arm, so I could only do this. I could only hold somebody's arm up like that. And I could only butterfly hook and go back like that, right? Because I couldn't finish an armbar. And nobody taught me that sweep, but I wasn't good enough to finish the armbar. But I could get somebody off balance enough that I could just like dump them into the hole. So, when I saw that, I was like, And that's the amazing thing about Gordon Ryan, obviously, is that he's able to do that to such a high level competitor. Like, being able, when you're doing, what I'm saying when I say push somebody into a hole.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's a big concept in judo too.
Being able to dump a competitor like that into a hole is like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to sometimes when I'm teaching like foot sweeps, just like pushing people into the void. You create a void.
And that's the thing is like, because like so much of jiu-jitsu is about avoiding that. But nobody like directly teaches that or talks about it, right? But that's the texture that comes through rolling. Because obviously, like if you don't learn how to move out of the hole, like you get pushed into it. Right? And so, I think that's why jiu-jitsu is so effective, is because not only is it the repetition of techniques during class, but that, dynamic expression where you have to learn all the in-betweens. Anytime I was taught karate or other martial arts, it's kind of very much start-stop. And that start-stop, I think, allowed for, it just wasn't the same.
That I've thought a lot about, just like back on the traditional martial arts, like at what point, like what led us to start doing like katas, as you see, like as they're practiced, and I, like part of it, I think in my research, like giving it to mass numbers of people at once, large groups, but also kind of like almost like why we do chains in jiu-jitsu. Like being able to slip into those patterns of movement. I mean, Jason, when he was on, he was talking about, he might have been talking about this at the gym, but like everything Gordon Ryan does is a pathway or restarting a pathway or the beginning. Like it's like mind maps, literally.
Well, I think, and that's kind of the thing about a certain skill where it becomes fun is, where you are actually rolling, right? And you don't get into those dead spots. And you know how you can have a roll with a buddy in class that lasts like 20 minutes long and nobody taps because you guys are just kind of, nobody can really get anything.
Remember some of the first experiences like that you had? Like when you roll like 20, 30 minutes?
There is this kid named Justin. And like we were both like new blue belts and he was like, young wrestler type. And we thought we were freaking Jiu-Jitsu all-stars. And we just, we were stupid blue belts that knew like, 2 sweeps and a Kimura.
That's currency, man.
And man, it's just, but man, we'd have the most epic rolls because we could actually fight each other a little bit, and, but it's just so rewarding. And because, even as a practitioner of martial arts all through my youth, because I was always taught and like, no, like you're a black belt in all martial arts for the rest of your life. So my first jiu-jitsu class, my jiu-jitsu instructor, who was a purple belt, said, "Do you want to wear a white belt?" And I was like, "Nah, man." And he's like, "Okay." And they were like, "Have you ever tapped before?" And I was like, Yeah, because I'd done gi chokes, like stand-up gi chokes before. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I swear, man, at that point, like I had no concept of what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was at all. But I saw him on the ground. I was like, "Okay, this is wrestling." And this guy
Did you wrestle in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
And this guy got on my back and he got me in a choke, and I could still breathe. And I was like, "I'm fine. I can breathe. I'm good." And then I woke up, and the jiu-jitsu instructor was on top of me, and I started wrestling. He's like, "Stop, stop, stop." And I was like, What? And he was like, "You got choked out, man." I was like, "What?" "No, I didn't." And he was like, "How'd you get here?" I was like, "Oh." And then I was like, "Hey, man, you got that white belt?" "Yeah, I'll take one of those." And it was great because, it put me on the bottom of the totem pole, but, it was its own thing, and it's such a struggle as a beginner to get there, and it's so rewarding in its own right, just to get to that level, and so being a black belt has been equally interesting because it's like, I've been like inspired to do all kinds of stuff that normally I thought I couldn't do, or maybe just something I didn't have any interest in before.
People compare the black belt, which is interesting because people talk about this. I know there are black belts in traditional martial arts that have never even done jiu-jitsu, just like people I've come into contact with trade shows. But like the black belt is like an applicable metaphor or mindset to like a certain set of like life skills. It's like I apply so many things. It's the things that I had about me that it took to get to black belt and that it takes to be a black belt. Well, I wouldn't have, like, thinking about those things.
And not to pat ourselves on the back, but what we had to go through to get a black belt was a little bit more involved.
Oh, dude, it was 11 years and 4 months for me. 16 for you.
Well, just the lack, you had to work a little bit harder to get that same information.
Most of my people will be 8 years. Woods is like 11 years or something right now, so he's kind of like on pace with me. But like John, Cora, Randy.
Okay, you heard me say when I started jiu-jitsu, my instructor was a purple belt.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to school as a blue belt, bro.
I can go into a day class, and there's 4 or 5 black belts. So I mean,
in Arkansas.
Yeah. So it's like what. You step into that, and it's like, of course you're going to progress faster. I mean, hopefully, and why should, we as instructors, I feel like, I don't want to cheapen it, right? I don't want to be the guy that's like, hey, I got this executive program and I'll teach you jiu-jitsu and you'll be a black belt in 6 months for $10,000. And if somebody figures out a way to do that, then let's remember to cut me a few points on that.
Let's make a website for it.
I really should.
Email,
I should have said that out loud. But, you know, at the same time, you know, we have to admit that, you know, there's better ways to do it, you know, and for not all people are going to be as long as us, you know. I hope to cut, you know, my buddy Alex in Virginia, I hope to God he doesn't have to wait as long as I did to get his black belt.
How long has he been training?
Not long enough. I don't know, 7 or 8 years maybe.
See, and he's running a school.
He is in Virginia.
They do in
Roanoke Judo and Jiu-Jitsu Club. And, you know, God love him because, you know, he was my student before I had any level of refinement. And it was like, well, let's just smash the living shit out of each other and go to a tournament and see if it works.
I still got some old guard around from like when I was coming up like that. Did you own a school?
No. Well, I ran a school. Okay.
Program director.
There was a lady that had a daycare that wanted to own her own martial arts school at one point, and she outfitted like wall-to-wall mats, like really nice mats, mirrors everywhere, and then she just got fed up with it. And so she was like, you can come in here, you can run your own program, you do whatever you want to do with the space. Right? And I basically paid rent, and I got to run my program, and I was the local idiot blue belt running a martial arts program.
Been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think I was maybe the first... I'm trying to think if there's anybody that owns a school now that's in the association that was coaching or running a program before I was. I don't think there was. Because when I started teaching, Eric was still training with Jonathan Border. Because Eric was Jonathan Border's student originally. And then Johnny would have been just starting to train with Caleb at that time.
So what year was that? Maybe like 2007?
Would be 2009 for me, I believe.
Yeah.
So that because like when Caleb and them moved to Northwest Arkansas, they eventually closed down the Clarksville location like sometime after that. But at that point is when I had to find something else to do.
You know, back when I had a blue belt, man, you could go to pretty much any cage fighting promotion and you could show up and beat everybody up because you had a blue belt. And it is not that way anymore.
Oh, man. Well, it's just because so many people... well, I mean, think about this. I use this story a lot. Like, I love Americanas. Remember when John Jones Americana Vitor Belfort, black belt world champion in an MMA fight? John Jones, a white belt. Vitor's a white belt and former world champion.
Okay. Have you, you know, we have to be practical about jiu-jitsu. I think that is important. Like, you know, there is an upper limit to all of these techniques that we do, man. You know, like yeah, like you pull on something enough, like it's gonna break, but like you encounter an opponent that has, you know, just physical attributes that are a magnitude or order greater than yours, and it can change things real quick.
I have never rolled with this person. He's been talked about on the podcast a few times. You ever rolled with a man named Robert Salinas?
Yes, I have.
What's that like for you?
You know, I really appreciate Robert because, you know, he has the strength that, you know, he can stop whatever he wants to, you know, and so only the best techniques that I have will work against him. But, you know, I feel like it is a plague to him at the same time because, you know, it's like it's like we talked about Justin Rader. Like, is Justin Rader aware of like being this world champion? Like
the number of people I respect that have talked about Robert.
How can he understand how much weaker we are than him? You know what I mean? Like, it's not his fault. Like, you know, and everybody's fighting so hard, you know, and he's like, what, man? Like, I'm just doing what you guys are telling me to do. Right? And then everyone, because we lose, I'm a black belt, I'm out, Robert taps me, I lose, and it's like,
is he a purple belt now?
Hold on. And then what? Yeah, and then what you do is you go, "Wow, man, you're strong." And what does that say?
You got no technique.
It says, "Dude, if you weren't so strong, you wouldn't have got me with that." That's what it says, because that's what everybody wants to say, because you don't want to think that there's this purple belt that just outsmarted you and they got you, and they're stronger than you. You know, and that's the reality of jiu-jitsu now, right? Is like there are people that, like, you know, their acumen is higher, right? Their athletic ability is higher, and you can't, you know, you as a black belt, like, you can't be jealous of that, because that's not your path. You know, I didn't get here. So why do I need to try and chase and attain that? Like, I need to be thankful that Robert's here to keep me humble, so that I can try and, you know, figure out a way to better my jiu-jitsu, rather than just, you know, look at this purple belt. Aren't you amazed by this? Watch while I dance on your face. Right? I mean, because otherwise, like, that's what we would do as black belts. We would dance on everybody's face, and then you have guys like that. They're like, nah, bro, you ain't dancing. Sit down. And it's like, oh wow, I got to work. And so, you know, that's the attitude I take to it. I take to it. And, you know, I try to remind him as often as possible to not break me. You know, I always, anytime he's about to break me, I say, Tinkerbell. And that's my safe word to him. And I have other people in the gym that I try to get to use it. Because again, like, you know, you have, okay. What do you when a white belt comes into your school, you subconsciously were like, all right, white belt, so like, you want to learn jiu-jitsu, right? Like, watch this. And like, it's like, aren't you amazed at how you just end up flattened on your back, and like, oh my gosh, I can choke you in all these positions, right? And then you get like some super freak athlete, and it's like, you put them in their first class and you try to put them on their back, and you can't. And it's like, well, I mean, you know.
I remember my college roommate, who's a specimen, dude. Like, he was tailback, all-state tailback on our football team. One day we were training, I put him in a triangle, and he just stood up, just stood up, like it was nothing. And I like slowly kind of undid my triangle and got back to my feet, and I was like, yeah, we're done here.
So, you know, I did jiu-jitsu in Blacksburg, Virginia, home of Virginia Tech. And so we would often get, you know, guys that didn't, you know, make it quite for the wrestling team or the football team, or even guys that were just in the off season and wanted something to do, you know. And I had this guy that was a linebacker.
Wasn't that Salinas? He was linebacker for the Razorbacks at one point.
I think he was defensive end.
Okay. Yeah.
But I put him in a triangle, and I swear to God, like, all he did was sit up, and I was stupid, like, blue or purple belt at that time, and I did one of those triangles you put your foot behind the back of your knee, and he just sat up and like righted his shoulders, and like my foot popped out. I was like, you know. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's good, you know, because that it will keep your, because, you know, that's the thing, man. Like, you know, here's a perfect example. Like the whole thing about jiu-jitsu, like, okay, put somebody in a triangle, just hold on to it. All right, now they're starting to stand up. Yeah, just hold on to it. Nah, bro. Nah, that is not a good answer. Like, if you want to win a tournament, sure, because there's a rule in the tournament that says, hey, you cannot spike this person down on their head. But that is not the jiu-jitsu that you and I were taught. Because if you would have done that in your first 6 months of jiu-jitsu, somebody would have picked you up and dropped you on your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, we can't do that anymore. So it's become something different.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Good. I don't want.
Do you like that about? Do you like the slams in ADCC though?
For ADCC, yes. Yeah, that's ADCC. Yes, that's what they're supposed to do. But that doesn't mean that we have to do that. On our mats in school.
I like the MMA rule. Typically, is that like you can't spike somebody like on this portion of their spine, but you can spike them like you can arc them onto their back.
I just think, look, man, look, we know what it is. Like, when you get the guys at that level, and you're like, all right, don't do this and don't do that. Yeah, okay, good luck. I mean, because I'm glad that there are rules like, don't spike somebody on the back of their head, because like obviously nobody wants to see be a spectator to a sport where the objective is to like permanently cripple someone or cause someone injury in a way, because nobody I think that's one of the reasons why people are losing, football is losing popularity.
I do too.
People are tired of seeing, because now we know what the long-term effects of all these injuries are. And so now when, there's a pause about, this guy being carted off the field because he's not moving or whatever, now, that sparks a whole media conversation about CTE and blah, blah, and there's this movie about it. And
people having 20 concussions in a career in football and having to retire because they've received their 20th concussion.
How many concussions did you get in your martial arts training?
That I was charting, probably none. That I was charting.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I got hit in the head a lot, but like never did like I get like rock knocked out, throw up.
But you know what? But I think that's the thing, is that the concussion,
consistent trauma over time. I'm worried about how my brain is going to age more than anything, and I think that's part of it. I think we see these guys that are like 40 years old and their brain's aging.
Okay, but you know what? And so here's the thing. Good news for you and I. Yes, we should be concerned and we should be highly aware of those things. Okay, and yes, that can. But you know what? Thank God for evolution, because our bodies are extremely resilient and built very tough, right? The tolerances that these guys playing the NFL are working with are insane. You're talking about 300 plus pound men that can run 20 miles an hour.
I remember I worked like my whole football career to be able to run like under a 4.9 40. And then when I got to college,
that's the slowest guy on the field in the NFL.
Oh, dude. I met like a 300-pound lineman that could just like put the 4.7 down. And I was like, what?
Yep.
Like, this is my pinnacle was, I was maybe 200 pounds maybe, and was in decent shape at the time. It was like had played football like my whole junior high and high school career, and yeah.
Well, and I think too, that's part of the reason why leg locks have become such a big thing in jiu-jitsu, is because there is quite a bit of strength involved in defeating someone's upper body and holding them down so that you can
and our legs are so strong too. What do you think about spine locks? Like we did the twister today, but like neck cranks.
You should let it it is your responsibility when you are participating in a submission grappling art to tap, and it should be done with, hopefully you train with a partner you trust. But hey, if you feel like I was telling you about that guy, that former NFL defensive end that I used to train with in Virginia, was a black belt. Dude, he would just wrap his legs around me and squeeze, and I think I was gonna pop. So and when I say I think I was gonna pop, like I don't know what it was, but man, I tapped because something was not gonna be good.
It's people with a squeeze,
and I don't know what that was, but I took that as my response. It's not his responsibility to make sure that he's doing the proper lock, and that there's this rule that says you can't do that. Like, nah, man, because that's the thing is like, real jiu-jitsu, like, you have to be aware of the danger of any position against any type of attacker. And, like, you know, let's not kid ourselves. Like, that's why Robert's important. It's like, no. Against a much bigger, stronger opponent, like, you cannot hang out and guard. Nah, you can't sit here and just try and get this armbar, because somebody will pick you up and spike you down on the ground. You know, and that's one of the biggest things I hate when people are like, oh, self-defense for women. Oh, I hate that. You know, I used to do private lessons in Virginia, and I had this girl that was like, oh, I went private lesson. I'm going to be traveling to India, and I went to learn self-defense. And I was like, what do you want to learn? And I was doing this Mastro defense system. I was doing this combatives with this guy.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Steven Vandenberg. It was the guy I was training with, and he was beating dog shit out of me at the time. And it was great. But, you know, it's so relevant to what she wanted. And I was like, oh, I've been doing these combatives, and let's do this. And she was like, oh, well, I was hoping you'd teach me jiu-jitsu. And I was like, well, show me your self-defense technique that you think is your best technique. And she laid down in front of me and was like, here, I'm going to do a triangle. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, put your triangle in. And she put her triangle in. I was like, is it locked in? And she was like, yeah. And I said, when I say go, finish it. Okay. And she was a little girl. And I was like, go. And I immediately stood up. And I was like, if I don't like you, I just immediately pile drive you into the ground right now. You know? And
what did she say?
She was kind of taken aback. But the thing I explained to her was like, look at the position you conceded before you started defending yourself. Was
she just like working from the point that she would end up there, and her logic of like, oh, like I'm a smaller person, he's going to try and get between my legs?
Well, my point was that like we need to think of this as that this is not like as an answer. Like she came to me and she said, I am going to India. I am traveling alone. I want to defend myself. And I thought talking about a triangle is not the most efficient means of our time.
Yeah.
Right? We can talk about that, but if you think that the extent of your ability to defend yourself should be in doing this triangle, I think that it's not.
Yeah, just like where you put that on the spectrum. I mean, this isn't Lethal Weapon 1, okay? When Mel Gibson put Gary Busey in that triangle in the very end fight scene, which was cool, and choreographed by Hoyer and Gracie. But like what you're saying, it's like somebody can just pick you up and slam you on the concrete, and then after you hit the concrete, your head hits the concrete. Like, let's say they slam you on your back, and then that secondary, you know, and you crack your head open, and then it's done. Then they can do whatever they want to you. And especially if that's like, I wouldn't, you know, like honestly, like kind of like the same size as me in the neighborhood, like I wouldn't want to pick you up, but it's like somebody, like if you're talking like with your girl, it's like self-defense. It's like they're lighter than you. It's not going to strain my back. It's going to be easier to get up underneath you. Like you're definitely going for a ride.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
and you know, and I think that jiu-jitsu taught in that sense has a completely different context, because it has a different set of priorities than the type of jiu-jitsu that we would teach to accomplish the submission that is legal in a tournament.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love stand-up jiu-jitsu a lot, whether that's judo, whether it's aikido I've integrated, or whether it's just techniques I've learned from wrestling that I've integrated, or just like techniques I've learned at jiu-jitsu seminars and train. But it's like, so like standing jiu-jitsu it can be very efficient. Like this book right here, like I tell people about it all the time. Have you ever looked at this?
Absolutely, I have. This was actually the Bible of the program that I came from last. I've trained in a few places.
I couldn't even afford that book the whole time I was in college.
The last place I trained was Hybrid Martial Arts in Roanoke, Virginia, and this was their curriculum, like just word for word. This is it, because they are a Pedro Sallier affiliate.
Oh, I love Pedro, dude.
And you know, people would ask, like, you know, what's the curriculum? And he'd be like, go buy this book. So, yeah. And I think, and you know, yes, because, you know, it was a comprehensive martial art. There's a knife defense in here, right? There's a defense against a chair, correct?
Yes, and a gun. Yeah. Couple of knife to club. I mean, but those are these are like the top moves from the judo self-defense katas.
And so here's my whole thing, right? Is that we need to make jiu-jitsu continue to be the forefront. We need to incorporate like updated elements, right? And just let it be its own thing, you know. And not be like, no, this is jiu-jitsu, we only do jiu-jitsu, right? Because quickly that's how people don't do takedowns. That's how we only start on our knees at the beginning of class. That's how we don't do wrist locks.
I remember when I first became aware that starting from your knees was bullshit.
I was not allowed to do foot locks when I started jiu-jitsu.
I was strongly discouraged, and I just like, man, thinking back on all that.
And when we did jiu-jitsu, when we did foot locks in jiu-jitsu class, we would start in like this like neutral position with a straight ankle lock on each other, and we'd be like, ready, go. And then whoever finished the other person first, and then we'd start again. We'd switch and do the other foot, and then go back, and then forth, and back, and then forth. And that was leg lock training.
Wow. Like, I remember I just totally avoided them. Like, they weren't taught really. Like, they kind of were. It's like when Inferno was in Clarksville, I learned a few leg locks, but like they were just discouraged because of the, like, even the colored belt ranks. Like, you can't do an IBJJF slicers and stuff until brown. And at that time, Mike and Caleb were like blue and purple belts. Like, they weren't doing them either. I think that's one of the common fallacies that people commit is like, well, I can't do that till such and such belt. But it's like, yeah, but you're going to be a white belt at that
Here's
move.
Here's the thing that I cling to. You are deluded in thinking you ever have any control over any type of real combative exchange. You have no control. We have more of a perceived control against each other because we have all these scripted responses that we expect each other to follow. Right, but the moment you meet someone from another grappling art that moves in a way that you know is unexpected, you know, it kind of breaks the rhythm of everything you do, right? And you know, I just I think that, you know, we need to kind of let jiu-jitsu incorporate those elements, and don't say it's purely this or purely that, because you know that element's exactly what led to me, you know, not having as much awareness about leg lock attacks.
How long have you been training? What belt when you first started getting more into leg locks?
I started trying to do knee bars when I was a brown belt, just because, you know, I was like, oh, you know, you can just punch somebody in the face. But to go back to my point, like, you know, that's true. But like, even in an exchange where like you can punch somebody in the face, like, you know, you might end up in this leg lock position. Like my buddy does sambo. He's got shout out to Antoine in Roanoke. Antoine will put you in the bear trap, and you ain't going nowhere. I don't even remember what the bear trap is, but I remember he put me in it, and I was confounded.
So how did you respond when you did, like you doing knee bars at brown belt, like running across people like Antoine and they would have your number?
I just muscled through it, to be honest. Like I was so aggressive, and I honestly think I just willed through it. You know, and of course there were people that were, you know, skilled enough that they'd give me and I'd have to tap. But like, that's where the poor programming that I had was like, well, next time I'll just push harder, right? Instead of being like, man, maybe I need to.
Did you pick up a lot of injuries over the years with that mentality? Other than like, I mean, you told me that seemed like your pec was more
because it wasn't like a real active struggle. It wasn't like I was actively saying, nah, screw that. Like, I'm not going to learn that, right? It's a subconscious thing. I mean, think about it. You don't, after every tap you don't make a self, you know, an individual assessment after every tap, right? But after every tap, like, you ever notice you get tapped on the same things over and over and over?
Then you make an evaluation.
but like why? Like why does that happen? You know what I'm saying? And so I think some of that you have to be honest with yourself, and like you have to put yourself in a position of weakness, and that is very hard for us. You know, for me it was, because like I always wanted to be the person smashing everybody. You know, because I mean it was just.
Isn't it weird we find validation in that?
I just like the intensity of it, because that's the truth of the matter, right? Like that's what I'm getting at. Like we're doing like a grappling submission art. Like it is, like yeah, it's the general art, but like, dude, come on, like let's be real. Like I want to smash your fucking face, and like not because like a proving thing, but like if somebody really wants to hurt you, that's what they're gonna do, right? And so if we're really doing jiu-jitsu, there has to be some element of that intensity incorporated into it. Not on every roll with every partner, but it is essential to the training and to the potency of the art to be maintained. Because the moment everybody's doing soft rolls at 50%, you know, it can fall off real quick, I think. You know, because then it's like, you know, you get some guy that had some wrestling experience in high school and he can blow through all that, right?
Dude, I had two guys come in somewhat recently. One from Virginia, might I add. His name was Tesley. What a weird name. I like it though, like Tesla and Leslie combination. But then this other guy from New York, and
you have a horrible Yankee accent.
Sorry,
impression.
Man.
It was okay.
It was more.
I can't do it either.
I kind of sound like a Southerner.
Do I sound like I have a Northern accent to you?
You have a different accent. I wouldn't, I wouldn't chalk up the way you talk as Southern. You know,
I think my year in Arkansas, I've picked up a bit of the little.
The tone of your voice is what's interesting, more so than I would say the accent of how you like your pronunciation. But yet, your voice has an interesting tone to it.
It's from the synagogue.
Nice Jewish tone.
That's right. What it is.
Yeah.
It's all the old Jewish ladies tell me not to eat cheeseburgers because good Jewish boys don't eat cheeseburgers.
True, you better get that fish sandwich.
I'm not a good Jewish boy, unfortunately.
Bro, you just telling me about going to get cheeseburgers earlier. Yeah, that's what we were talking about before we got off on that. Okay, yeah, but yeah, these kids that come in 7 and 9 years of wrestling. And then and one of them had trained with some dude up in New York, the Soul Fighters guy, who's famous. I forget his name, but he's just like here working at the nuke plant. Came in with 9 years of wrestling. He's got like a tip on his white belt, and I was like, dude, you're one of the fakest white belts I've ever seen.
So, why do you think? What do you think about programs that take forever to promote their students? Like.
Creates a lot of problems.
It's like if a student comes to their instructor like, hey, what do I need to get to blue belt? And the instructor's response is, show up to class. And then that's it. What do you think about that?
I personally take like 5 different things into account on a student when I go to like grading them, like and ranking them. I'm like, okay, how long you been doing this? How long you been doing it at your current belt?
And you're already answering my question in a completely different way, because you completely missed the point of my question, because my whole point was that in some environments it's like, yo, who the hell do you think you are asking me to get your blue belt?
Oh, yeah, I was raised that way.
Right.
Don't talk to me about rank.
Because your immediate approach was, well, I have a few things that I like to do, and the first thing I like to do in my evaluation is right, and that is completely different than the experience you will get. And so that's my whole thing. Because wouldn't you say, you say that was your experience too. What do you think about that old school way versus what we're trying to accomplish?
I think it's damaging because.
So why is it like that?
I don't know. And then here's where like one of the first places I saw is when we switched that system of like the old school promotions, like, because here's what happened is I ended up being.
You mean the gauntlet?
No. We used to get thrown though.
Yes. Well, I was throwing people at the first black belt conference.
We're not doing that shit anymore. Not at my school. Fuck that.
I always thought of it like as a jovial thing. Like I never really threw anybody
Yeah,
hard.
you know how the white belts getting blue belts think about it? They're fucking scared, dude. They're so scared they don't want to come to rank review because you got a monster like John that gets off on slamming you into the mat and has a judo black belt, and he's going to throw you after you've been thrown 20 times.
Yeah.
Like, it's a liability to our students, and I was like, we're not doing it anymore.
See, I always look forward to that stuff.
You look forward to it because you get to throw an underbelt.
No. Like when it was my turn to get thrown.
Like, I saw Nate get thrown by his ring finger. How would you like that?
All right.
Like, by Danny Dring. Like, grabbed Nate. When Nate got his brown belt, Dring grabbed him by his ring finger and threw him, and Nate, like, made a sound I'll never forget. He goes, like, it was like he was, like, going over a hill on a roller coaster or something. Like when he went up and jumped into the flip, he was like,
Well, yeah, and so Dring took me down an interesting path at the last Weeping Conference. And I will again have to give a shout out to Eddie Thomas for teaching me Aikido and teaching me how to forward roll like I have life in my veins, because Dring just made a quick change in direction on us, and I had to do a forward flip is all I'd really call it, as quickly as possible.
It does become a flip. like I didn't know I could jump over another human being
I
like
didn't
that.
know I could roll that quickly, and I was very specific about doing it in place, because I knew that, like, if I rolled outward away from him, it was going to get tighter. So I had to, like, roll very quickly in place, like immediately in front of him.
And then he just knees you after you get down there or something.
Man, just when he knocks on your door, just lay on the floor, man. Fuck
He's just
all
like,
that.
like, sir, my door is unlocked. I am on my belly with my fingers laced behind my head. Like, dude, I've trained law enforcement with that guy before, and like one time he had me down in the cuffing position, like his knees pinched around my shoulder, and he had me jack that wrist lock, and his shin was like had my ear folded up.
And so, you know, there's the answer to our question. It's like before, like, martial arts was all about killing people, right? I mean, let's be real. Like, you know, I mean, like, really, it was much more, you know, visceral thing. And so, you know, now, you know, obviously that's not our objective, and so, you know, it kind of we have to change the attitude. Like, it can't.
It's Jason Ryan's objective.
I can't
bro.
have that same
Pistols and knives, right? Have you seen that guy's strapped? Okay, he's got weapons on him.
We are so confused. Come on, man. Like no, just jiu-jitsu practitioners, like practitioners of all martial arts. Like, you know, like we put on like expensive garments, and like we do like pre-scripted roll. Like none of us are that dangerous. Like we're more dangerous than people that yell at the TV screen that watch NFL.
You ever been to a UFC?
No, not 2-1. No.
That is one thing I will never forget about going to a live UFC is the people in the audience. Like going to local shows is bad, yeah, and they're drunk or whatever, but like the armchair experts in the UFC audience that are arguing with other people, and yet the things they're yelling, I don't know if it's because they're drunk or what, but it is wild, man.
Remember when I said earlier that like in our culture that like persistent ignorance has become a commodity?
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the thing, is it's like, you know, everybody has seen an armbar video, and so you're like, well, man, why didn't you just do this?
Here's my favorite one. Like we were at some fights one time in Arkansas, it was like Little Rock, and there was a drunk fan, and there was like a striking exchange going on, and somebody goes, Vaughn flew, like a striking exchange, Vaughn flew choke, and a drunk audience. It was just like there was like a lull, and like that's all you heard was Vaughn flew.
Let's talk about the old school pride fights. Okay, back in Japan, you hear a pin drop.
Oh yeah, the audience is silent.
So that's the whole thing. Is like when it came to America, like there was an entire shift, because like, you know, all that kind of stuff was disrespectful, because martial arts being so much a part of the culture, like they knew the sacrifice, like these people, like they knew like really what that specialization meant. It wasn't like, man, Nate Diaz gonna get in there, he gonna whip his ass, boy.
that Banff belt, dude.
You know, and hey, man, that's a real thing too. Man, let's not discredit that, right?
Dude, okay. So is this really happening? Is Masvidal really fighting Nick Diaz? I gotta look at my.
Why not, dude? That's what I'm saying. Is like, you know what? These guys are basically doing with UFC what we're doing with like podcasts and stuff. Like these guys are their own brand. Like what the what belt? The what? Shut up, man. That is some made up shit.
Well, too, it is. It is, and it's.
But you know what it is? Millions and millions and millions of dollars. And you know what? That's pretty real to me. I bet that's pretty real to them.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's like what's crazy is that they created this other thing that's not like a title belt. But
it garnered excitement and energy from the fan base, and oh man, now it's its own thing.
Well, what to think about this is that belt could theoretically travel to any weight class.
I didn't think about that.
Like that could end up in.
Well, no. What about athletic commissions?
Okay. So let's say this
because don't athletic commissions they don't allow open weight class fights anymore, do they?
Well, no, but look at Nate Diaz is 170, but the vast majority of his fights are at 155. So, like, what if he would have won and then he took on a 155 challenger? Then they beat him, and then that 155 was Max Holloway, and he ended up fighting a 45er. So it's like it could, because people skip, and once the 55 to welterweight jump goes away, like once it's 55 to 65 and 65 to 75 and 75, like once they get rid of that gap.
I really wish they would bring back open weight classes.
I wish we could get some more like I hate long form tournaments, but like a one night 8-man tournament and stuff like that.
Because let's be real, man. Like not everybody is going to choose to do the open weight classes, right? But like that is so entertaining as a fan.
Yeah.
Because we remember, dude. You remember? Was it Hoist that freaking Kimura, that sumo wrestler? That was
what is that guy's chemo?
That was the most amazing thing that I'd ever know. I thought, well, yeah, you're right. I think you are right.
Was it chemo, K-I-M-O?
I think so. Man, that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life. You know, because you would never think before that. And you could tell the guy that got chemo, he didn't think it was going to work either.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So
I'm trying to think. Did that guy fight the guy in one boxing glove? I'm trying to think. I need to go back and rewatch some of those.
The Dragon.
Yeah. Oh man.
The Dragon. You're talking about the black dude.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't want to break my hand. I'm gonna whip this.
Hey man, he was a legit guy for a long time. You know, but that's the thing is okay. Because I came from the karate background, and the thing was when jiu-jitsu started to become popular. All my karate friends were like, well,
oh no,
but I can never be taken down to the ground.
Chemo is this dude.
Chemo's a white guy. Yeah, no. It was I think it was either a sumo wrestler or I can't remember. I thought it was a sumo wrestler, a Japanese dude.
Emmanuel Yarbrough, that's not him. Joe Son.
But you know what I'm talking about, where he's underneath the 600-pound dude.
Yeah, here's the fight right here. It doesn't say who though.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'll just throw it up on the TV here. Oh, wrong TV. Studio TV. Dude, YouTube is such a wonderful thing, and then like once they made it to where I can just throw it from my phone to right here, even better.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. Okay, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen old school Vale Tudo fights?
Yeah, like in Brazil?
Shit.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bob Gracie, who is... Bob Gracie probably knows more jiu-jitsu. He was given that name Bob Gracie by Henzo. Henzo hung out with him and started calling him Bob Gracie. And Bob gave me some video of some old school Vale Tudo footage from back in the day, and I watched them fight, and I was like, oh, this is why. because like there was no prize, there was no, you know, and they were crammed into what looked like this, like, you know, sports hall, looked like an old basketball gym, like it looked like it was crammed full of people, and this little like platform that had literal
Seen Hickson
ropes.
fight Zulu before?
Had literal ropes on the outside of it. People came in, right? The first fight I saw on this thing, come out, ding ding, dude gets cracked in the nose, square in the nose, collapses in the middle of the ring, and like there's blood everywhere. And he crossed the outside of the ring and grabs the ropes. He's trying to get out, and his opponent goes and grabs him. The referee pries his hands off the ropes and drags him back into the middle. And then the guy finishes him with a rear naked choke. But like everybody jumps in the ring, and it takes like 8 people to drag him off because he won't let go of the choke.
Well,
you know, and
have you seen Hickson's Vale Tudo?
That's
fights?
Vale Tudo. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, that's gonna break,
dude. That's how I just recently.
I bet he let that break.
I just recently showed a Kimura variation like that from an omoplata.
That's broken. I guarantee you that's just broken.
What's okay? Dude, you gotta check this out. Hickson. This is, I believe this is in Choke. This clip here. Hickson Rezulu. This is it. I usually have this hooked up so it comes into our earphones. Okay, this...
man. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's I don't know why it's showing montages, but that is Hickson and Zulu right there.
Have you ever broken concrete or bricks?
No, only boards. Bro, don't get me started on sidekicks with Chuck Norris, okay? Because I'll set those bricks on fire and learn how to break them.
I really think that breaking bricks was interesting to me in a lot of ways as a martial arts practitioner.
It would be interesting. I mean, I'm into like Makawari type work for sure.
Well, not only that, but like honestly, like if you do a quick calculation of all the inertia that you can generate in a strike, like you can break through a piece of concrete, and that's the thing that you learn is that through proper execution of the technique, that like you can generate tremendous amounts of force, you know, and you kind of, in order to do it, you have to believe in it, right? Because like if you have any doubt about hitting a block of concrete, it's not going to go your way.
Okay, watch when he chokes him out.
Yeah, they just holds him, right?
Okay, I guess I don't know if we just couldn't see it on that. So Hickson and Zulu fought twice, but there's a clip, and I remember this is the first time it had to have been from Choke because Mike is who turned me on to Choke. But when Hickson is choking him out, that dude is reaching back, digging his fingers into Hickson's face.
Yeah,
like just like.
So you know, Henzo always used to tell us that biting, eye gouging, fish hook, all used to be acceptable in jiu-jitsu, as well as using your gi to suffocate people. So taking your gi and unraveling it and wrapping it over somebody's face and just trying to suffocate them.
I do that.
You know, and he was like, "Oh, you know, back
you ever
in the
choke
day,
anybody with your belt?"
He's like, "If you can't get it out of an armbar, he's like, I just bite you."
I mean, you do an oil check to get out of it. Well, anything.
Man, I can't get behind that, man. I don't know.
You wouldn't insert something into another man's butthole to get out of a submission?
Bro, we're too recreational these days.
Dude, I've done that at least a dozen times. To probably 10 different people. This is one person I used to do all the time.
Fine, dude. You can have the top position in this 3-minute pajama roll. In this 3-minute pajama roll, I can see the top position because you're willing to put your finger in my butt crack.
Dude, sometimes it's the big toe if you're getting out of a knee bar. I just want to throw that out there.
You know, that is where the tailbone is, bro. I put my shins and my hooks there all the time to lift people. I know it's like
I love that kick out from the back. I did that to Jason. You'll probably, because I edited some footage of he and I rolling. You'll probably see that when I get our little videos out. So,
jiu-jitsu is such that, like, even somebody like Jason Ryan can have something to say.
Dude, I mean,
it's for everybody.
We live in a world where Jason Ryan was just on a podcast, and will have more videos of himself on a YouTube channel that gets a lot of views. It's a scary world.
Well, Jason
we've talked to him. We talked about him at least 10 times on the podcast.
Jason Ryan has a very good analytical mind, and he likes modeling success, and he chooses to model somebody that obviously has had the most success right now. And so, I like learning techniques from Jason because, again, that's not something that I've concentrated and spent a lot of time on. And so, he's a very, very important resource to me as far as like my journey and doing that, because I don't get to train with Braden every day.
Yeah.
And that particular style that he's trying to emulate is kind of its own thing too. Because that's what it was very confusing, because like I chose to try to start doing leg locks late in the game.
I was purple belt.
And like I got even recently I've been real hungry about leg lock information, so I'm going to this guy and that guy.
Do you have the Danaher stuff?
No.
I have a login if you want.
Yeah,
okay.
I have access.
Okay.
But the thing is like everybody does it so differently.
Yeah,
and
you Craig Jones, Lachlan Giles, everybody's got kind of their own little flares.
And so that's kind of the thing, is it's just like finding relative points of entry to what I already do, so that way I can use it in a context that's relevant to what I'm already doing, so I don't have to make an extreme shift away from what I'm doing. I can just incorporate and then expand from there.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's what's so different. Like where I'm at, like just working with Braden the other day is, and we were talking about this before we went to the gym, is like the leg lock positions are what I just went through the same thing with like side control and mount. Like I learned, I was like, yeah, it's a position. Cool. Show me all the cool shit to do from there. And then like I went back full circle and I was like, this is a position. I hold them here, and then all of these things present themselves. It's like the heads and tails of the coin of static pinning, holding you down, you can't move, versus movement.
So have you ever done a technique and then you meet somebody that's better than you and you realize it's not a technique anymore?
Dude, that's where I am. Like
some weird fascination you had against people that weren't as good as you.
Like Braden with the freaking clover leaf, man. Like he's told me twice he doesn't believe in that move, a year apart, and he's just like, yeah, go ahead and do it to me, and I could not.
Here's the thing, man. But see, look, I'm telling you, man, his mind is different too. And he has that competitor spirit, like the extreme competitive survivalist spirit that most people have no relative context of, where it's like, go ahead and pull on that foot and it's going to have to pop a few times before he even flinches. Like, that you're going to have to get it to pop a few times before you get a reaction, before you start to get a reaction, right? Because most people don't even want that first pop to go.
Yeah.
So when you're trying, that's a different tolerance. So, but I feel like that's why his leg lock is so serious and so dangerous, because those are the tolerances. It's like, nah, bro, I ain't tapping that little, limp wrist stuff
tickle
right there. Yeah, nah. Like, you're going to have to break it.
Yeah, dude, he is something else. I was super happy I got to sit down with him. So this has been like, because I do the Jiu-Jitsu show periodically, but between him coming on and then
I'm really glad
Jason
that
and
somebody like him that's so good, so much better than me, is a nice guy.
I'm glad he's on our team.
No kidding.
I hope he does well at No-Gi Worlds, man. I'm excited for him. Did he compete at Nashville the other day, or was that just Eric?
Man, I think maybe he's competing this weekend. I know he was raising funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so humble too, man. When he came through, he did an hour-long private lesson with me in the podcast, and I was just like, yeah, dude, how much for the private? And he's like, dude, it's just like some gas money, give me $20. And I was like, bro, come on.
So I talked to, and I don't know Braden a lot, but here's my thing. It's like, he was like, well, I'm not as good in the gi. And then I put the gi on and I just started like passing his guard. And like, I was so confused because I was like, how could I go from not having any ability to do anything at all except sit here and get tapped to just like passing this guy, pass, smash. And you know, I think in a way is because he's trying to adhere to a rule set. Because
it's a sports psychology.
Well, he
goes,
well, I can't do this to you. And I said, well, yeah, you can. He's like, but we're wearing a gi. And I was like, dude, I don't care if we're wearing a gi. I was like, you can tap me with whatever you want to. But in his mind, he's so fixed on like the particular rule sets of gi versus no gi that he really just, I think there's, when we put a gi on out of kindness to us, he's not doing all that stuff, and he's like, "Oh man, you guys are so much better than me still."
Dude, that's funny. Well, that's the psychology behind that is interesting because it's just like you were talking about earlier with like, well, I was a brown belt, and then the next day I was a black belt, and I had all these psychological sort of changes in the way like that was for me. Like him, it is something as simple as like the Clark Kent Superman. Sort of metaphor is like, oh, you're just a normal person, or like you have these superhuman abilities we can't cope with. Who was it the other day that came in from somebody somewhere out of town?
Look, man,
Josh Root does, but people come to our school and get heel hooked in the gi, and it blows their mind because they don't train heel hooks at all.
But here's the thing, he has some natural athletic talent, right? And he has focus and determination that is beyond a level that most people can comprehend. And then that amounts to a skill that is superior that most people are like, whoa, what is that? Because, like, you know, that guy probably locked himself in a closet and did heel hooks for 4 years, right? So let's not say that, man, he's just so lucky that it just comes natural to him. Because I doubt
he does like 30, 35 hours a week right now. Yeah. Like, and not to mention his total time. I mean, and that's why I think that we shouldn't be sandbagging people. Because, like, when you deny somebody that's put the time in and they have the skill level for any reason, and like, particularly to see it happen with competitors makes you sick.
No. Okay, so I want to talk about this. I'm glad we started talking about this because I have a student in Virginia that she competed recently. She's a blue belt. She's been a blue belt for a long time. And we talked about her purple belt and what she wants to get out of her pursuit for purple belt because she's trained in another school. And because specifically how this relates to Braden is letting competition or your ability to tap people be the metric in promotion. Not who's better, because here's the thing: is we should be able to allow blue belts to be better than black belts. It's just the way it is, dude. But hey, little one, wait your turn.
Yeah,
you know, and because here's the thing: is like, you know, Tara went to this tournament and she didn't do well. She was like, I don't even deserve to be a purple belt. And I know Tara extremely well, and the things that she has overcome and achieved in her life, with jiu-jitsu being the center focal point for like her positive progression in life, it's very inspirational to me. She is one of the most remarkable people that I've known to practice martial arts because of what she's been able to overcome and achieve. And I found it very discouraging that she discounted her worthiness of the next rank because she didn't do well at a tournament.
Yeah.
And I think equally, like, we should not exalt people that win because the struggle and the progression, that time of progression, the length of progression allows people to mature on the inside, to change on the inside, because like, you don't want a blue belt that can kill everyone to suddenly be put as like, okay, this is the guy that we're going to let lead the circus now. Because he's going to be like, we just kill everybody. And then it all falls apart. Because it's not just about that. Like ultimately, like, yes, like the like the end of like a one-on-one competitive exchange where you have a referee and a nice matted surface to grapple each other, like yes, that's what we're trying to achieve. But you know, the like keeping the martial arts culture intact and like creating trying to better the martial arts than the state in which you received it, you know, ultimately is the goal. So
here's one thing that's something that I've given a lot of thought to is like, do you think that ranking should come down to the mood and or perceptions of 1 to 2 individuals? Because like we've talked about old school differences, we've talked about how much of a lens sport is to view jiu-jitsu under, and how it's very real. But it's like at the same time, it's like, dude, I think there should be boards and committees for all the stuff that we're talking about.
I think, well, okay, I think you have to be. I think the easiest way is to just be like, you know what, you come to this amount of classes, you practice this amount of time, I just rank you.
And that's how it's supposed to be at black belt.
And it's your journey, and you know, if you want to get to a black belt and everybody in the room can tap you, then dude, that's your black belt that everybody in the room taps you with. Congratulations. You have a black belt and everybody in the room can tap you. You know, I mean, if that's what you want to do, I mean, you know.
Well, and that's like, dude, that's like a far extreme.
Sure.
Like, you know.
Absolutely. You know, but at the same time, you know, okay, let me tell you, one of the most discouraging experiences I had, I was teaching an older gentleman, probably like 78 years old, retired thoracic surgeon, Pravis Sajati. Shout out Pravis in Salem, Virginia.
So you think he's going to watch this?
He very well might. I hope so. You know, he's one of Master Thomas's original students. He started training jiu-jitsu with me. And I had a jiu-jitsu instructor, and I went to my jiu-jitsu instructor, and you know, Pravis had been training with me for like 3 or 4 years, and I was like, you know, I really want Pravis to like attain his blue belt, because I mean, he's getting older, and like, but he shows up and rolls with like 20-year-old guys. Mm-hmm. And for like a year and a half, he worked on just being flexible enough to get into combat base, because his body was
his
not
age and his knees. Yeah,
he couldn't even do it. So he spent a year and a half doing private lessons with me just to get flexible enough to be able to move around. Okay, and then he would come to class and he hung in there. He rolled with 20-year-old guys, and I had good guys, and like they knew that you mess with Pravis, I will fucking kill you. Seriously, and they're like, okay, like we had a karate guy that hit Pravis in the eye. Pravis had cataract surgery to remove a cataract from me and hit in the eye, and I kicked him through a wall. And then Alex knocked him out. Shout out Alex.
After, like right after the...
Like in karate, no, like 3 years after, because, you know, like gravity, all things rotate around the sun, and, you know, eventually it's
everything comes around.
Bro, I waited and waited and waited. And wait, like really, because this guy was like, yeah, I hit him in the eye. That old man, he came at me like he was going to do something, and I showed him what was up. And I was like, oh, you did? Okay. And I waited 3 years.
Noted.
I waited 3 years, and then I kicked him through a wall, and then the karate instructor separated us, and then he went with Alex, and Alex jacked him up real bad. Alex probably threw the nastiest right hand I've ever seen in my life.
Were y'all just like MMA sparring or what?
Karate point sparring, but we were very upset because I looked at Alex, and Alex knew, like, yes, this is it, this is what we, because Alex was in the room with me when that guy. Anyway, back to Pravis. So I went to my jiu-jitsu instructor, and I was like, hey, you know, this guy been training me, like, and what do we have to do? Like, you know, I really want to be promoted to blue belt. And his answer was like, well, you know what, man? Some people just aren't blue belts. And it was kind of like this thing of like, well, because he can't crush these people, he's never worthy. And like, I was like, Nah.
How did your ranking work at that time? Like, yeah, like did one person made all the decisions? Like,
You were the what we were told was you're testing every time you step on the mat. So it's like, what do I need to do to get better? Show up to class. Well, I mean, are there certain things that I need to work on? Yeah, your jiu-jitsu. Am I getting close? Not any closer than you were yesterday. You know, and I think that's a very I get, you know, because people when they do that they're like, oh, I'm old school, but really I think that's like, yeah, I mean you just don't have the facilities to properly approach people's questions because it challenges you in a way.
mm-hmm.
Because like as a black belt you're like, what do I mean I can tap everybody, you just have to listen to me, you know? But that's not really the world we live in anymore. Like we're offering people like, you know, an exercise class. So like this is a service industry.
Well, there is a little bit of that too, and like I think that all martial arts school owners need to take a healthy study course or watch YouTube videos on a little something called consumer behavior. Because I'm telling you, at like almost everything you have ever remarked on, or anyone has ever remarked on that I do differently in my business, I don't do all things perfect, but not even close, has been related to some concept that I've rooted in my study of consumer behavior and giving the people what they want. And like that's why like the oversight of the old guard sometimes prevents that and ultimately affects your business because consumers don't work that way.
But my only thing is just that if the only measure that we have of rank is who you can beat and who you can't beat, Justin Rader's a black belt. Every one of us are still white belts, bro.
The only person
like,
who's got more mentions than Justin Rader on this podcast is Jason Ryan and Braden.
So it's like who in the world, you know, ever deserves to tell somebody like because like yeah, this like 70-year-old guy is not going to be competitive against a 20-year-old, but like look at all the time and effort and the accumulation of skill that they've put, and like and you know, dude, for all of my 20-year-old guys that came to the gym, do you know how they worshipped him? Because this guy was like old enough to be our grandfather, and he came in and took abuse every day. He didn't have to do that. He was rich. He's a retired thoracic surgeon. He could go sit on a golf cart, sit in the golf cart and drink bourbon all day if he wanted to. You know, but that's what he chose to do with his time, and that was his passion.
Did he stay training with you till you moved, or was that dude do it now?
Yeah, he did. And it reached a point where, you know, he got old enough and his doctor was like, hey man, because he had an episode after class, he got really dehydrated because he was getting over being sick.
It's hard for older people to stay hydrated.
Well, and that's where, as an instructor, it's like, you know, because this thing is like, you know, hey man, like, yeah, like I want to be an instructor and say that like I build world champions and like, oh my gosh, you better watch out for my students because they'll kill you. But at the same time, like if I have somebody like that that's practicing later in life and like they have physical limitations, I want to create the same productive environment for them to learn and progress that this animal has to go and learn how to rip people apart, you know, because in order for me to be successful, in order for the art to be successful, like it has to have, you know, that ability to be all those things.
I think about this stuff more and more. Like the longer I'm in the game, the bigger my school gets, the more we grow, because it's super relevant to factor in these people. Like when I see videos on the internet about promotions of like older people 70 plus getting their black belts and stuff, it's like they're no different than that guy that you were just discussing. It's like they're coming in and it's like we can't, like, I just not about denying or admitting that, like saying that, like, okay, all belts have got to
Let
be
me
this
tell you,
this
man.
integrity.
I had, being a Taekwondo instructor early on, I was able to teach kids with a lot of challenges. And, like, if you really want to be that sour son of a bitch that sits in front of somebody is like, nah, you can't do that because of some limitation they have, you're so cool, dude. Sure, you go over there with all your little friends in your corner and you guys go be cool, because I want to do something else.
Yeah, it's gonna create issues, and whatever those are, whether it's your student that leaves or it's a schism.
But look, man, that's what I was like. People in the general population do not want to be around that. They don't want to be around like a dozen alpha males that decide that you can't choke me, so you have no worth. Right, and so look, if we want to be those alpha males that can sit around a pack of 12 of us and choke each other because we enjoy it, then and you don't want to do that in a cold garage or somebody's shed out back on puzzle mats.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's like when we started growing was when I started shifting to be like, yeah, you 12 people are cool and y'all ain't really going anywhere if I start catering to the other 80%.
Did all 12 of those people, did they pay you?
No.
Hell no. Man, Brian, you're the greatest ever, man. Right? And it's like...
I just can't afford it.
Or like, and that's the thing is, it's like, even if they are your great friends and even whatever, it's not sustainable. Right? And like and here's another thing that, shout out Eddie Thomas. I love that dude, man. He told me, he's like, if you're the greatest instructor in the world and you teach 5 students, what's the probability of anyone know how great your teaching is? Instead, like, you can expand the scope of your teaching so that, like, you as the instructor, like, instead of you're saying, nah, like, I only teach this group of people because they are worthy. Like, well, maybe they all die, or whatever, versus you as an instructor, the challenge being on you as the instructor to broaden your ability to reach people, and then you reach 500 people, right? And because you don't know, man, you don't know who's going to be a black belt. I did not get my first Taekwondo black belt because I was not aggressive enough. Right? Like, I have never been accused of not being aggressive enough, but that was who I was when I started martial arts. And so I just, I think you kind of have to allow for some growth there.
Do you feel like you've toned down a lot over time, just since you got your black belt?
When I got my black belt, I got soft. I remember Eric Ingram rolled with me immediately after I got my black belt, and he looked so disappointed. Or he thought I was hurt. But I was just like,
I made it. Pressure's off.
Nah, because, okay. I don't know, man. I think subconsciously, honestly, when I'm being honest with myself, being honest with you, I look at myself and I'm like, man, I want to tap everybody on every roll so I can show that I'm better, so that somebody will notice me and I'll get my black belt. And I got my black belt, and it's like, well, I don't have to do that anymore. And so it's like, wow, like, if I don't do that and I just kind of relax, like, I can get caught with this stuff because I don't really know that very well.
Bro, this mindset's never going to get you to first degree. I'm just kidding.
No, but and then, okay, so I started opening up a little bit, and that kind of like softened my aggression, and then I started realizing how little physical energy it actually takes to move people. Because so often I've been like, I'm going to move you like with everything I got. And instead, like, sometimes I'll notice, like, I'll just like put my palm on the back and just kind of, and like their whole body will shift. And I
Yeah.
think, maybe they're programmed to do that or whatever, but at the same time, it's like, there's so much more skill towards threading the needle, so to speak, rather than, just trying to beat everything with a hammer. And so, that's kind of been, I've been really trying to sharpen my timing and rhythm. And once my objective, for instance, especially when I roll with lower ranks, if I'm not practicing defense, and if I am practicing defense now, I'm much more open to tapping than I was like immediately before getting my black belt. Like, so now, like lower ranks, like they've got me in arm bars and leg locks and stuff, and I just kind of let it go because like I want to see, like, at the end of that arm bar, can I still try to escape?
Yeah.
And in doing that, like, I've just kind of, comes like another type of confidence and another type of dimension to your game that, like, you never really.
You didn't develop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I remember this was a subtle thing. Like, I remember one time, like, I had somebody in an armbar or a Kimura, and I was like pulling on it, like you just had tension. And then I relaxed, and then they relaxed, and then I easily popped their arm out, and then I was like, oh, I'm never going to tense up on a sub again. Well, like, I mean, I do, but if it's not there, I just was like, it's stupid to keep pulling when it's not there.
And so that's kind of what I was getting at. Is like, when I roll with lower ranks, like if I'm still being offensive and I'm not being defensive, like my goal is like, okay, I get an arm bar, and then they spend the rest of the time defending, and like there is no end to the attack, right? And like, because being able to do that, like chain it together and stay in control, and such in a way that you don't have to physically force a finish, because there's so much technique contained in that struggle, right? Like, you go for an arm bar and like you latch onto it, and yeah, you can hug that thing and rip on it and finish it. But if you allow them to bend their arm and do a hitchhiker escape, that's going to challenge you to do 50,000 other things that can come out of that exchange that then sharpen your jiu-jitsu in another direction that you're not going to get if your answer is simply no, like just sit on top of it, grab it, and squeeze. Because you will run into someone that's good enough that you can't do that to.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, dude, let's go ahead and wrap it up.
Absolutely.
If that's cool. We're about 2:40. Cora is texting me.
Holy
not
God.
saying she's making me turn this podcast off, because I do what I want,
Man,
I go with my own life.
We didn't get to talk about the universe or expanding
The simulation
consciousness
theory,
or
none of that.
Multiverse,
String theory.
Well, multidimensional beings.
Interdimensional.
Because,
Traveling.
like a fifth dimensional being knows to all things past, present, and future, I guess, right?
There's omni everything.
Because they can walk through time like we walk through the hallway or something like that.
You ever watch the Watchmen, like Dr. Manhattan's character? That's like one of the most fascinating characters.
I love that movie. Well, that's why I love comic books, right? Is because they introduce all types of things within like quantum theory that become like practical, introspection, because it's like, oh, isn't that interesting? Like
that's how we're going to invent teleportation. Like, somebody was saying, like, the original Star Trek series, that's the only thing that hasn't been invented.
Yeah. Well, I mean, entanglement is proven. I don't know, man. I have some odd theories on reality, but I kind of think that physical separation between objects that we experience is just a perception.
Elaborate on that real quick.
So, like, you and I have a physical space that separates us, correct?
Yeah.
But we, as, drawings or paintings, or like we're on the same piece of paper.
Yeah.
So in that way, like we're still on the same piece of paper. Like we're really like the same thing, like the physical separation that you and I perceive is more of a perception than we realize. Because I feel like our existence is really, I don't know how to.
Yeah, here's something that kind of, like Koros, who turned me on this. I have 27 hours philosophy. I haven't had my philosophy professor on here yet, but when I do, I'll send you the link.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you know how shadows are formed, and like you look at a shadow? So I kind of think that's kind of how like the projection of our reality is. Like how we might just be like this like little tiny blob, and so we're like the substrate, and then like the energy that acts on that substrate projects a shadow, which we experience as reality. So it's like this 3-dimensional shadow, which is our perception, and we have this perception of like physical space within the infinite, would physical space even exist in that? Maybe
and could we comprehend it if so?
Isn't zero the infinite or something? I don't know. It's really weird.
Well, here's something with this. It's like, could I even perceive space in the way that you just described it, or could any two people? Because here's the thing: there's as many Joshes that exist as people that have met you. So that's another thing on like the multiverse is like everyone that's ever perceived you, that's ever experienced you in any capacity, did not experience it in the same way as another perceiver. So like she and I are perceiving you in 2 totally different ways at this very moment. And everybody that's ever met you perceived you in a different way. So there's that many versions of yourself that exist.
Well, and that's just like, based strictly in consciousness. Right. And that kind of goes back to the question of like, are you the same person when you wake up in the morning as when you went to sleep last night?
Where were you when you were asleep last night?
Everybody would say, well, like, yeah, of course, like I'm the same person. And it's like, well, then why do you change over time? Like every time you wake up and you reboot, are you sure you're the same person?
Or in the same place you fell asleep? Because the same verse.
And I don't even mean that like hypothetically. I mean like, seriously, like physiologically. Like, how does your brain change over time? Like, when we think of ourselves, like, in the past, like, oh, no, I am this person. This is who I am. I don't ever do that. I am this. Are you sure about that? Because a lot of what I think people, they use to define themselves is just filler. And when you really examine it, it's like, well, do you really do that? It's like, and then that's kind of goes back to what I talked about in the beginning of, like, that disassociation from I. Because all those things you identify with, they are speed bumps. Like they're barriers between you and what you're trying to achieve that you have, they slow you down from like reaching the truth because like, they're like your emotional anchors to like pull you back down to your lower self. Right? Like, hey man, it's time to go to train tonight and like work on your path to enlightenment. Man, but the guys are going out and eating potato chips at Buffalo Wild Wings. All right, bro, I guess you weren't meant to be enlightened then. Like, go for it.
That's something else that always fascinated me. It's like what makes people choose to stop going to eat potato chips with the boys and choose a path to enlightenment. Like, I've polled a bunch of people on this, and everybody gives different explanations, but it's fascinating to know and study and examine what the impotence to change is in people.
I don't know. I thought that was really interesting when I experienced jiu-jitsu for the first time because I was immediately like, I have to learn this so I don't die. Yeah. And all the other karate guys I trained with, it was like, they were like, oh, well, I would never be taken down to the ground. So, and then they just had such a resistance and I never understood it. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I could take you down and choke you right now. I've been doing this class 6 months. Like, you know what I mean? And it was just, and I never understood that, but I think that's just human nature. And unfortunately, and as a modern day entrepreneur and martial arts instructor, that's our response. That's how we have to diversify and like develop that dimension of our skill is to learn how to break down those defenses, those guards that people have psychologically, and how to weave our psychological arm bars into their brain and footlocks if you're Jason Ryan. psychological footlocks.
Brain ninjas, man.
Psychlocks.
Did you see the meme earlier? They were talking about the foot Kimura.
I heard you talking
It was
about
hilarious. It's like some white belt.
But I'm
saying,
horrible about that, because like I'm a black belt. I don't know what any of the names for any of the techniques are. So like I constantly make up names for techniques.
Oh, I do too. And mine's like, I typically try and lean towards things that are more like metaphorical or conceptual.
It's like chasing a bunny rabbit. You ever seen that movie Aliens when the alien gets sucked out through the window? Yeah, it's like that.
Obscure cultural references.
I always laugh in class when I'm telling people things like that and no one else laughs. So.
Oh, dude, it happens to me because I lecture and teach so much. Dude, I run into audiences that have never seen Mrs. Doubtfire, and I drop a Mrs. Doubtfire reference on them, and then
they're way too young.
Yeah. What do you do? Well, right on, bro. Well, once again, thanks for coming by.
Thank you, sir.
We'll have to do this again.
Absolutely.
On down the road. I'm sure that we'll
talk about enlightenment as the first matter of subject next time.
The movement which existed from 1715 to 1789 in Europe, or the concept in philosophy.
I'm talking about right now.
All right.
What is enlightenment right now?
Wait, that would be a fascinating topic. being in the present, or how our concept.
I don't think I'm following your academic subject matter, but
yes.
I mustered the best answer I could there.
Well, I just had a guest on the other day. He said this phrase: "We are children of the Enlightenment." And he was talking about the movement in 1715 to 1789 Europe.
Well, hey man, I just think it's about realizing that you can break the chains.
Well, yeah, and I mean consciousness. I think the living consciousness has shifted a lot due to that movement.
Oh man, I can't wait to get artificial intelligence consciousness. I want all of the artificial consciousness.
You seen Black Mirror?
Some of them.
The ones that deal with AI and like chips in the brain and stuff really freak me out. So.
Bro, if they give me CRISPR genetic engineering and I get some genetic enhancements, you better not roll with me, man, because I'm gonna
I know, man. Like you need any more work.
I'm gonna be a force.
Yeah. Well, dude, signing off. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time.